Chapter 1194. Thieving Divine Axe. Debayo's eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. His expression was unreadable, and no one knew what he was thinking. If thieving Laozu was the most glorious human of the spirit-seeking mice clan, then the thieving divine axe could be said to be the #1 divine weapon that the spirit-seeking mice clan worshipped. This treasure was only at the level of a Class 1 tribulation spirit treasure, and it was not famous for killing, but for destroying all kinds of protective formations and opening up all kinds of tunnels. However, it was a spirit treasure after all. In the hands of thieving Laozu, it could easily break through formations and rock tunnels. In the hands of others, it might become a killing weapon. However, this treasure was also a must-have for Debayo. The thieving divine axe was almost regarded as the sacred treasure of the spirit-seeking mice clan. Although this treasure was not in the hands of the spirit-seeking mice clan, this did not prevent the spirit-seeking mice clan from regarding the thieving divine axe as their clan's treasure. Seeing Debayo's uncertain expression, Qinghu naturally understood the reason immediately. Lu Ping and Debayo had been together for a long time, so he naturally knew what Debayo was thinking. However, this item was discovered by Qinghu, and with Debayo's current cultivation, he naturally could not control a spirit treasure. However, Lu Ping was naturally embarrassed to say these words. In the end, it was Qinghu who smiled and said, "Brother Bao, I naturally know what the thieving divine axe means to you. However, my natal magic treasure cannot survive the thunder tribulation and become a Class 1 tribulation spirit treasure for the time being. Therefore, I would like to ask for the thieving divine axe for the time being. In the future, when Qinghu finds suitable top-grade spiritual materials to upgrade the magic treasure, I will definitely return this thieving divine axe." After hearing Qinghu's words, Qinghu's expression became somewhat ugly. He opened his mouth and said, "Why? This is a treasure that we obtained with great difficulty, and we even sacrificed the lives of Little 5, Little 6, and Little 9. Not only Qinghu, but the rest of the 9 bandits, including Qinghu, were also somewhat unhappy. However, when Qinghu suddenly glanced at them, they realized that the real decision in front of them was not this rat demon, but Lu Tianping, who was standing behind her. He was their master, their savior, and also the person that they relied on to enter the thieving heaven treasure again. In fact, when Qinghu and the 9 bandits came to seek protection from Lu Ping, they had already given the thieving heaven treasure to Lu Ping. Everything found inside and all the distribution rights belonged to Lu Ping as the master. However, at this time, perhaps Lu Ping was not used to the authority of this master, or at least he had to respect the contributions of his subordinates, so he did not say anything. Debayo was extremely shrewd, and there was nothing that he did not understand at this point. He immediately smiled and said, "That's not good. After all, the thieving heaven treasure was exchanged with our fellow Taoist lives. Even if Debayo is a money grubber, he will not be so greedy." Speaking of this, Debayo pondered for a while and said, "How about this? Fellow Taoist Qinghu's natal magic weapon is a Xian Hua giant axe, right? I, Debayo, will take care of all the spiritual materials needed to upgrade this Xian Hua giant axe to a spiritual treasure in the future. When the Xian Hua giant axe is upgraded to a spiritual treasure, how about I exchange it from fellow Taoist Qinghu?" Then, Debayo seemed to feel that all the bargaining chips were not enough, so he became generous and said, "How about this? I will help fellow Taoist Qinghu to upgrade your magic weapon, but I will add one more thing. Before I have the ability to control the thieving heaven axe, fellow Taoist Qinghu can use the axe as a spiritual treasure. What do you think?" Before Qinghu agreed, Qinghu first asked, You really can get those supreme-grade spiritual materials to upgrade the Xian Hua giant axe? You're not bluffing, are you?" The Qinghu 9 bandits had robbed many houses in the past, but until now, they only had 2 or 3 spiritual materials to upgrade the Xian Hua giant axe. How could Qinghu believe that Debayo, a rat demon at the core forging stage, had such an ability? However, with the help of Lu Ping, there was still a possibility. At this time, Qinghu, who had always been honest and straightforward, also used narrow-minded words. His words were obviously questioning Debayo, but in fact, he was asking for a guarantee from Lu Ping. However, they still underestimated Treasure Lord. Treasure Lord's most valuable things were inseparable from Lu Ping's help, But these things were useless to Lu Ping. Moreover, over the years, Debao had used these things given to him by Lu Ping to exchange for treasures. Even Lu Ping would go through Debao's collection when he needed them. As for how much wealth Debao had, even Lu Ping himself did not know. Moreover, the power to deal with these things was in the hands of Debao. To gather the spiritual materials needed to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Debao really didn't need Lu Ping to worry about it. Before Qinghu could finish his words, he saw a lump of golden red stone in Debao's hand. Qinghu's eyes lit up, Qinghu's eyes narrowed, and Qinghu's eyes bulged. He exclaimed, "Meteorite gold red iron, such a big piece?" Debao said proudly, "How about it? This treasure is one of the main spiritual materials needed to upgrade your Xianhua giant axe. Of course, you don't need this much. When we have the space, find a refining grandmaster to cut a piece of it for you. I don't have the rest with me, but don't worry. After we settle down, Treasure Lord will think of a way." This piece of meteorite gold red iron was one of the treasures that flew out from the explosion of Hanya Laozu's storage artifact when he was killed by Lu Ping. Because of the characteristics of the meteorite gold red iron, it was not damaged at all. Although Debao only showed one piece, spiritual materials that could be used to upgrade spiritual treasures were extremely rare. If Debao said that he could immediately get all the treasures that could be used to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Qinghu and the others would not believe it. Debao understood that the thieving heaven-hidden treasure was discovered by Qinghu and the others, but he also knew that no one would give up their natal magic weapon for a spiritual treasure. As long as there was a chance to upgrade a natal magic weapon to a spiritual treasure, the power of a spiritual treasure of the same level would not be comparable to that of a natal magic weapon. Therefore, no matter how famous the thieving heaven divine axe was, if Qinghu had to choose between a natal magic weapon and the thieving heaven divine axe, Debao was sure that Qinghu would choose the natal magic weapon. Sure enough, when Qinghu heard Debao's conditions, she immediately smiled and said, "Then it's a deal." Debao also smiled and said, "It's a deal." At this time, Lu Ping finally laughed. "It's rare to see you, Debao, being so generous for once. You're actually willing to use so many treasures?" There was no dispute between the two sides, and without Lu Ping's participation, the two sides settled their differences. Lu Ping was naturally happy to see this, and did not forget to tease Debao. Lu Ping turned to Qinghu and asked, "Where is the thieving heaven-hidden treasure in 9 Mystical Towers territory?" Qinghu answered, "In the depths of 9 Mystical Mountain." Lu Ping was taken aback, and he smiled bitterly. "It's so close to 9 Mystical Tower, no wonder it was discovered by them." Qinghu also smiled bitterly. "That's right. But the last time we ventured into 9 Mystical Mountains thieving heaven-hidden treasure, we obtained a piece of information from it. This time, the main reason why we ventured into 9 Mystical Towers territory again is because of this piece of information." Lu Ping was taken aback. "Oh, what is it?" "Thieving Heaven Pill." Qinghu said word by word, then asked Lu Ping, "Master is not only one of the top 3rd-generation cultivators, but also a famous alchemy grandmaster. I wonder if you've heard of a miraculous pill like the Thieving Heaven Pill?" The 9 Profound Mountain was located in a mountain range to the southwest of the 9 Profound Tower. The mountain range wasn't very tall, but it was extremely steep. The 9 Profound Tower didn't get its name from the 9 Profound Mountain. On the contrary, it was called the 9 Profound Mountain because it was very close to the 9 Profound Tower. Lu Ping led Qinghu and the rest in a circle, sneaking into 9 Mystical Towers territory and arriving at the outskirts of 9 Mystical Mountain. Once they were close to 9 Mystical Mountain, Lu Ping used the art of sea deception and constantly changed his appearance to observe the situation in 9 Mystical Mountain. After returning to their base, Lu Ping sighed helplessly. "The situation is a little more complicated than we thought. 9 Mystical Tower has already put the entire 9 Mystical Tower under surveillance. If we enter again, even if we can avoid the 9 Mystical Tower spies, once we open the treasure trove, the commotion will definitely alert the 9 Mystical Towers cultivators again. They will quickly find the entrance to the treasure trove and set up an ambush outside. It won't be like last time. When the 9 Mystical Towers people were alerted, they arrived too late and could no longer find the entrance." Qinghu frowned. 9 Mystical Tower seems to be very concerned about the thieving heaven treasure trove. Lu Ping nodded. The more concerned they are, the more precious the treasures in the treasure trove will be. Debeo did not care about that. There were only treasures in his eyes. What treasures are you talking about? Lu Ping thought about it. The thieving heaven divine axe can be considered the treasure that made Lao Tzu famous, the tool he relied on to make a living. But now he has lost it here, and this place is so close to Nine Mystical Tower. Qinghu immediately gasped. You're saying that this place is very likely the location of Lao Tzu's most important treasure trove? Back then, it was rumored that thieving heaven Lao Tzu had once snuck into a sacred land to steal. Could it be that the sacred land that was stolen was Nine Mystical Tower, and this is the stronghold that thieving heaven Lao Tzu set up to infiltrate Nine Mystical Tower? And the reason why Nine Mystical Tower has mobilized so many people is because the treasures that were stolen from Nine Mystical Tower are also in the treasure trove? Lu Ping nodded. Most importantly, after news of thieving heaven Lao Tzu infiltrating a sacred land spread in the cultivation world, thieving heaven Lao Tzu has not appeared in the cultivation world since. Chapter 1195. Hearing Lu Ping's analysis, Qing Lang had a flash of doubt in his mind, but his attention was soon attracted by the possible treasures in the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. You are saying that thieving heaven Lao Tzu was already heavily injured when he escaped from the sacred land, and this hidden treasure became thieving heaven Lao Tzu's final burial ground? No wonder you said that this hidden treasure is very likely to be the most important hidden treasure left behind by thieving heaven Lao Tzu. When everyone heard this, they immediately let out low exclamations. Among them, Debao even jumped up and down. He seemed to be extremely excited, and his movements weren't affected by his fat figure at all. At this time, Qinghu asked with a smile, Master seems to be quite interested in thieving heaven Lao Tzu. You actually know so much about thieving heaven Lao Tzu? This was the question that flashed in Qing Lang's mind previously. After all, thieving heaven Lao Tzu was a person from 10,000 years ago, and even now, legends about him had spread like wildfire, but it was still suspicious for someone like Lu Ping to know so many details about him. Even though Qinghu had her doubts, she could only be doubts in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping only smiled and did not answer, so Qinghu naturally would not pursue the matter. Lu Ping knew about these things because of the fragments of memories left in Fei Tian Lao Tzu's pure young soul. This was considered as Lu Ping's biggest secret. He naturally would not reveal these things. And Fei Tian Lao Tzu knew about these things not only because his era was closer to thieving heaven Lao Tzu, but also because his location allowed him to obtain more secrets of the cultivation world. More importantly, Ying Tian sect had once obtained a hidden treasure of thieving heaven, from which they learned some things about thieving heaven Lao Tzu, which were passed down from generation to generation and were eventually obtained by Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled. Qinghu, let's talk about the thieving heaven pill. Although you entered the thieving heaven treasure trove in a hurry, how did you find traces of the thieving heaven pill? Qinghu said regretfully, we only found a jade bottle with the thieving heaven pill's name on it, but there were only some dregs left inside. Thieving heaven pill was also a heaven-defying pill created by thieving heaven Lao Tzu in the past. Thieving heaven Lao Tzu's original intention of refining this pill was to improve the low-rank bloodline of spirit-seeking mice. In other words, to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. In fact, there was no alchemist in the cultivation world who didn't have this idea. Besides, it wasn't that there weren't similar methods to improve one's aptitude. It was just that all of these methods required rare treasures, just like the fruit that Lu Ping's direct disciple, Du Jialua, ate when he was young. They were all treasures that could only be found by luck. Thieving heaven Lao Tzu was probably like this. When he was still a mouse demon at the blood-refining stage, he was fortunate enough to eat a spirit fruit of heaven and earth during a foraging process, which cleansed his body and improved his aptitude, causing his cultivation to soar. Later on, thieving heaven Lao Tzu focused on alchemy and had a fortuitous encounter, which pushed his cultivation all the way to the Dharma manifestation stage. And thieving heaven Lao Tzu's ambition was not ordinary. He wanted to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. How many spirit-seeking mice were there in the cultivation world? Perhaps even Kai Tian's seventh patriarch did not know the answer to this question. However, to improve the aptitude of a race, perhaps only Kai Tian's seventh patriarch could do it. At the very least, Thieving Heaven ancestor could not take out those rare heavenly treasures for each of the mice to improve their aptitude. Otherwise, those so-called heavenly treasures would not be called heavenly treasures. But Thieving Heaven Laozu really had this belief and struggled in the cultivation world for hundreds of years. For this reason, he constantly improved those methods that could improve aptitude, hoping to replace those rare treasures with spirit herbs that were as common as possible or not too precious. However, this process was extremely difficult, and the amount of spirit herbs needed was enormous. Even if Thieving Heaven Laozu reduced the rarity of the spirit herbs used, it was only using lesser treasures to replace more precious treasures, using rarer 5,000 years old spirit herbs to replace 5,000 years old spirit herbs, using 3,000 years old spirit herbs to replace 5,000 years old spirit herbs. And in the process of replacement, because of the sufficient amount of medicinal ingredients, the number of spirit herbs needed was often even greater, but the pills refined might not be able to completely reach the effect of improving innate aptitude. But soon, a problem arose. Although Thieving Heaven Laozu was trying his best to reduce the grade of spirit herbs needed for these heaven-defying pills, while rare treasures were rare, they were not so easy to obtain. 3,000 to 5,000 years old spirit herbs were not dog's tail grass. Furthermore, in order to not reduce the medicinal effect, the amount of these things needed was extremely large. Thieving Heaven Laozu soon fell into a predicament. He could not obtain enough spirit herbs to complete his dream. In desperation, Thieving Heaven Laozu could only take a risk, that was to steal. As a result, all the large and small sects in Central Plains that specialized in cultivating spirit herbs were targeted by Thieving Heaven Laozu. Thieving Heaven Laozu's reputation soared, but he also became the rat of the cultivation world. Everyone wanted to beat him up. However, Thieving Heaven Laozu was indeed worthy of being the most outstanding spirit-seeking rat in the last 10,000 years. Many of the defensive formations in the cultivation world's spirit herb gardens were all broken by him. Many famous great cultivators were alarmed by him, but they could not catch an ordinary Dharma incarnation rat demon. Finally, he targeted the 5 sacred lands. In terms of cultivating spirit herbs, which sect in the cultivation world could compare to the treasures of the sacred lands? There were rumors in the cultivation world that Thieving Heaven Laozu succeeded in the sacred lands, but then he disappeared, and there was no news of this person in the cultivation world. But now it seemed that Thieving Heaven Laozu might have escaped from the 9 mystical tower and stole the spirit herbs, but he obviously suffered a big loss and probably couldn't have survived. In the cultivation world, there were still some spirit pills refined by Thieving Heaven Laozu. These spirit pills were collectively known as Thieving Heaven pills. Most of them were accidentally discovered by cultivators in the thousands of years after. There were very few of them, but each of them could be regarded as the best among the spirit pills. Additionally, most of these spirit pills were related to improving a cultivator's aptitude. Even if they couldn't completely improve a cultivator's aptitude, taking a pill would allow a cultivator to rapidly increase their cultivation base or greatly enhance a certain aspect of their body. These spirit pills were not only the dream of every cultivator, but also the obsession of every alchemist. Thieving Heaven Divine Axe, Thieving Heaven Pill. Just these 2 items alone were enough for Lu Ping to take the risk and make the trip. Tonight, only you, me, and Debeo will go. The others will stay outside to provide support, Lu Ping said to Qing Hu. For cultivators like Lu Ping and Qing Hu, day or night was nothing to them. The reason why Lu Ping chose to sneak into the 9 mystical mountain at night was mainly to cover for Debeo. No one knew how many treasures Thieving Heaven Laozu had left in the cultivation world, but some people inadvertently discovered that if they brought along a spirit-seeking mouse when exploring Thieving Heaven Laozu's treasures, they could easily enter the treasures and find more treasures. At this time, the cultivators realized that Thieving Heaven ancestors spent so much effort to leave behind the hidden treasures. It might be because he wanted to pass his inheritance to his descendants, or because of his background. The spirit-seeking rat could easily find the treasures he was hiding. In other words, Thieving Heaven ancestors' painstaking efforts were all in vain. His descendants were still one of the most lowly races among the monster race. The treasures he left behind for his descendants were all found by his own descendants under the control of others. In the middle of the night, Qing Hu flew towards the 9 mystical mountain, while suppressing her speed. Even though she tried her best to hide her aura, she was still discovered by the cultivators of Nine Mystical Tower. On an empty peak of the Nine Mystical Mountain, Nine Palace Tower Lord Zhu Jiwan gritted his teeth and shouted, "It's her! This bitch! The boss of the Qinghu Nine Bandits!" "Shut up!" A sturdy man in his 30s did not care about what kind of powerful background Zhu Jiwan had. He opened his mouth and shouted coldly, causing Zhu Jiwan to obediently shut her mouth. However, Zhu Jiwan's expression was obviously extremely indignant, but the person in front of her made her extremely fearful, so she did not dare to act rashly. There were obviously other cultivators of the Nine Mystical Tower on the peak, but they all tactfully shut their mouths at this time. Only one person was lying on a boulder, muttering about a stalk of grass that he had plucked from somewhere. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and mumbled, "Enough, second brother. I know you're waiting for Lu Tianping to appear, but I advise you to call Boss Wei over. You're not much stronger than me. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'm afraid you're not Lu Tianping's match." This person was naturally the third of the Nine Mystical Tower's direct disciples, Chang Laosan of the Three Talents Pavilion, who had once fought with Lu Ping. The second brother he spoke of was obviously the Two Rights Tower Lord, who was ranked second. They had obviously gathered here because they had expected Lu Ping to bring Qinghu back to search for the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. Qinghu's appearance at this time was just a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Not good. Qinghu seems to have sensed something. She suddenly turned around and ran out of the Nine Mystical Mountain. Could it be that Lu Tianping didn't come to the Nine Mystical Mountain with Qinghu? Why didn't his brothers come with him? Aren't they usually inseparable? Could it be that they have an ambush outside? An ambush? What a joke. Ambushing the Nine Mystical Towers cultivators in the Nine Mystical Towers territory? Are you going to lend them your guts? I'll lend them. Chang Laosan, scram. Ninth brother, eighth brother, seventh brother, the three of you go chase after Qinghu. Remember, if Lu Tianping comes to their rescue, the three of you just need to keep them busy. If you want to wash away the humiliation from before, today is your chance. The Two Rights Tower Lord roared. The rest of you stay where you are, just in case this is a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Chapter 1196. The Yin and Yang Tower Master's guess was indeed correct. Not long after the Green Fox retreated, a cultivator who was standing with the Yin and Yang Tower Master and the Three Talents Tower Master suddenly grunted and said, "Second brother guessed correctly. Someone really did sneak in and activated the warning formation in the mountain." Third brother Chang looked at this person in surprise and sighed. Fifth brother's attainments and formations are becoming more and more astonishing. Second brother and I did not discover that someone sneaked in, but in the end, that person still could not escape from Lu Ping's formation detection. Fifth brother Chang shook his head and said, "That person's method of concealing his tracks is extremely brilliant. If it wasn't for the slight vibration of the ground when he walked and activating the formation, even I would not have known that this person had already sneaked in." The Yin and Yang Tower Master, who had been silent all this while, said, "This person must be Lu Tianping. Only this person could avoid our divine sense and sneak into Jushuan Mountain." The Five Elements Tower Master said, "Should we surround him now?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master shook his head and said, "The three of us working together is enough to deal with him. It's just that this person's strength can defeat a great cultivator. Even if the three of us work together and defeat him, we won't be able to make him stay. Right now, we only need to follow his tracks. This time, the main goal is to figure out the location of the Five Elements' hidden treasure. If we want to deal with Lu Tianping, we will have to wait until he comes out of the hidden treasure." Third brother Chang was startled and said, "This time, we are going to kill Lu Tianping?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master said, "For the thieving heaven hidden treasure, we can't care so much. You all know that when thieving heaven Laozu came out of Spirit Luan Blessed Land, he was heavily injured. After that, there was no news of him in the cultivation world. Our sect seniors have long suspected that thieving heaven Laozu left behind a hidden treasure near Jushuan Tower. Thieving heaven Laozu most likely died there. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, many of our sect's ancestors, Laozu, had explored the area around our sect more than once, and this 9 Profound Mountain was an important area, but they could not find the inheritance left behind by thieving Heaven Laozu. Who would have thought that a few thieves would find it and sneak in? Thinking about the number of treasures found in the thieving Heaven hidden treasure, thieving Heaven Laozu must have made some arrangements before his death. These thieves only obtained some superficial things. This time, the place where thieving Heaven Laozu died will definitely have more treasures. This is also the reason why we are sure that they sneaked back again. The Yin and Yang Tower Master paused here and said, with Lu Tianping's ability, as long as he enters the thieving Heaven hidden treasure, his harvest will definitely surpass the Green Fox 9 bandits. But in order to find the entrance of the thieving Heaven hidden treasure, we have no choice but to let him in. So we can only wait for him to come out and kill him. At that time, Boss Wei will also rush over, and Fifth Brother will also be able to set up a formation at the entrance. At that time, Jishuan Tower's direct lineage Yuan Tower, Yin and Yang Tower, 3 Talents Tower, and 5 Elements Tower will work together, and with the help of the formation, if we still can't take care of Lu Tianping, then we really can't be direct lineage cultivators. It will be embarrassing. However, as soon as the Yin and Yang Tower Master finished speaking, 5 Elements Tower Master's expression became increasingly strange. Chang Sankai, who was at the side, quickly noticed 5 Elements Tower Master's expression and quickly asked, Fifth Brother, what's wrong? 5 Elements Tower Master glanced at the two of them and said, he's coming towards us. The Yin and Yang Tower Master was shocked. He stared at 5 Elements Tower Master and said, how did he find out? Fifth Brother, didn't you say that this formation to hide our tracks was comprehended in the Nether Space Lost formation, and even our sect's great cultivators can't find it? 5 Elements Tower Master was obviously also stunned, but Chang Sankai, who was at the side, said, maybe he didn't find us. The Yin and Yang Tower Master and 5 Elements Tower Master were stunned. Then Chang Sankai continued, why can't the entrance of the thieving Heaven hidden treasure be on the hill where we are? After sneaking into 9 Profound Mountain, Lu Ping traveled quickly, but he didn't use any flying techniques. He insisted on walking on the ground. He passed through several valleys and valleys. Then he took a detour and headed towards the hill where the people of 9 Profound Mountain were at. Lu Ping was not proficient in formations, but he had a Dao companion who was proficient in formations. After being trapped in the Nether Space Lost formation for more than 20 years, he also obtained the 9 Debao Restrictions Formation Foundation from the Nether Space Lost formation. So Lu Ping's understanding of formations was not shallow. Right now, he even had the large success stage 3 Pure True Pupils ability. After refining the Lone Eagle's bloodline, the power of the 3 Pure True Pupils had become even stronger. Not long after entering the 9 Profound Mountain, he had already discovered the set of concealment formations set up on the hill. The formation that the 5 Elements Tower Master said was comprehended from the Nether Space Lost formation was a joke in Lu Ping's eyes. This concealment formation was simply an imitation of one of the formations in the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation, and it was not a complete imitation. There were only some slight changes at the corners, making it look like it was the same, but it was actually not. Of course, the person who set up the formation was able to enter the 8th layer of the Nether Space Lost formation. At least it meant that this person's attainment in formations was above Deng Ming's, and he was an experienced formation master. If it was on a normal day, Lu Ping would naturally be cautious when he saw this person. However, since this formation was copied so well, Lu Ping, who already knew the answer, naturally would not be so polite. He went straight to the top of the hill, ready to meet the heirs of the 9 Profound Tower. On the top of the hill, Chang Sansai's words were greatly approved by the 2 Elements Tower Masters and the 5 Elements Tower Masters, especially the 5 Elements Tower Master, who was even more certain that Lu Ping definitely did not discover the formation at the top of the hill, and that the thieving Heaven treasure was on this hill. The 2 Elements Tower Master nodded and said, in that case, second brother, open the formation and let him move freely. We will retreat first, and when he finds the entrance to the treasure, we will come back and surround him. The 5 Elements Tower Master executed a few techniques, and under the astonished gaze of Lu Ping, the entire formation still existed, but it had lost the ability to obstruct people from entering the top of the hill. It only had the effect of concealing one's tracks. If not for Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils, he might not even know that there was a formation at the top of the hill. Lu Ping's divine sense moved, and he saw 3 extremely weak auras retreating from the other side of the hill. If not for Lu Ping's extraordinary divine sense, he might only see these 3 auras as wild beasts that roamed the mountains at night. The 9 profound towers' actions made Lu Ping a little confused, but he immediately thought of something, and his lips curled into a smile. He really walked around the top of the hill, and then, as if he had tripped, he staggered and kicked a stone under his feet into a depression on the stone wall. Just as the stone smashed into the depression, the whole stone wall suddenly flashed with a spiritual light, and then the stone fell from the stone wall and disappeared again. The 5 Elements Tower Master, who was watching from afar, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, he has discovered us." Immediately after, he saw Lu Ping, who was at the top of the hill, look at the stone wall in shock. Then, as if he had realized something, there was a flash of light under his feet, and he quickly flew out of the 9 Xian mountain. Chang Sankai was puzzled. How could things be so coincidental? How could a Dharma adept like Lu Ping trip and accidentally kick a stone? Furthermore, the stone had hit one of the nodes of the formation, causing the originally invisible formation to suddenly reveal itself. How could so many coincidences happen at the same time? At this moment, the anxious voice of the 5 Elements Tower Master rang out. Should we chase after him or not? If they did not chase after him, now that their tracks had been exposed, Lu Tianping would definitely not come after them. If they chased after him, not only would they not be able to catch up, even if they did, could the 3 of them work together to stop Lu Tianping? At least, Chang Sankai, who had seen Lu Ping's strength, did not think that they would be able to do so. As they spoke, Lu Ping's light had already disappeared into the sky, and the 3 of them could no longer track Lu Ping. How could he be so fast? The 2 Elements Tower Master sighed and said, "There is no need to chase after him. At least we have confirmed that the thieving heaven's inheritance is on this mountain. Even if we spend some effort, we will be able to find it." Outside the 9 Xian mountain, Zhu Jiwan, the 7 Stars Tower Master, and the 8 Trigrams Tower Master stopped Green Fox. Zhu Jiwan said fiercely, "Bitch, let's see where you can run this time." Green Fox looked at the 3 people surrounding her and said with a smile, "I did not say that I will run." Zhu Jiwan was startled. Then he saw a bright light under Green Fox's feet. Zhu Jiwan immediately shouted, "Quickly, destroy the teleportation formation under her feet." However, the light disappeared in a flash, and there was no trace of Green Fox. Zhu Jiwan and the other 2 rushed to where Green Fox was standing and saw that the teleportation runes on the simple teleportation formation that was covered by a thin layer of soil were gradually dissipating, leaving only the teleportation talisman at the center of the teleportation formation that was torn to quickly activate the formation. Teleportation arrays could be used for teleportation purposes, but the activation speed was slow. Teleportation arrays could be activated quickly, but the destination of teleportation was not precise enough. However, at this moment, the 2 were perfectly combined. This was a directional teleportation array. Where did Green Fox go? Somewhere in the 9 Xian mountain that Lu Ping had passed, Debao, who had shrunk his body as much as possible, but was still as fat as a meatball, crawled out from the ground. The reason why Lu Ping had chosen to sneak into the 9 Xian mountain was to cover for Debao, who was using the earth evasion technique along the way. In the middle of the mountain, Debao transformed back into his human form and chuckled. He tossed an item in his hand into the air. That item was none other than the secret key that Green Fox had used to enter the thieving heaven's inheritance, a small and exquisite axe-shaped magic tool. Debao walked half a circle around the mountain and found the boulder that Green Fox had mentioned. He saw Lu Ping take out the axe-shaped magic tool, and it immediately transformed into a majestic giant axe, then fiercely chopped at the boulder. Dang! The boulder was split in 2, and the entire 9 Xian mountain sounded as if a huge gong had been smashed. Debao put away the magic tool in his hand and jumped into the 2 halves of the boulder. He disappeared into it, and the 2 halves of the boulder instantly merged back together, becoming whole again. Chapter 1197. The shock from Debao's strike was not small, But the sudden loud noise caught the 9 mystical towers cultivators off guard. The master of the yin and yang building and the others suddenly realized that they had fallen into another trap. Not only Qinghu, but Lu Tianping was also just bait, luring them to focus all their attention on them. Unexpectedly, a third person had sneaked into Mount Jiushuan. However, the crux of the matter was how this third person had snuck in. Why hadn't the 9 mystical towers measures detected his presence? Not far away, Zhu Jiuan and the others had also rushed over to meet up with the master of the yin and yang building and the others. They had returned after being shaken off by Qinghu. What should we do? Everyone looked at the master of the yin and yang building. At this moment, the master of the yin and yang building's expression was frighteningly gloomy. Previously, he had thought that everything was under his control, but now he suddenly realized that he had been tricked by Lu Tianping. The heirs did not say anything. Only Zhu Jiuan had a gloating expression on her face. Let's search. What else can we do now? Circle up all the suspicious places in Mount Jiushuan and surround them as soon as possible when they come out. Chang Sankai saw that the master of the yin and yang building was not in his right mind, so he said this. Chang Sansai's words brought the master of the yin and yang building back to his senses. He continued, no one is allowed to act alone. Once you discover anything strange, you must immediately entangle the intruder. The others will then go and provide support. Zhu Jiuan casually looked at her hands and said, Mount Jiushuan is so big. How can we search all the way here with just the few of us? I don't think there's any need to keep up appearances. Let's go back to the sect and ask for help. Call a few of the second-generation cultivators and surround Mount Jiushuan so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. I don't believe that he can fly into the sky. What a joke. Is one Lu Tianping worth alarming the entire 9 mystical tower? A voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears, and almost everyone's spirit was shaken. Even Chang Sankai, who had always been sloppy, pulled out the grass stalk in his mouth, and Zhu Jiuwan's sarcastic young mistemper also disappeared. Bossway, you're finally here. A pale-faced, young-looking cultivator suddenly appeared in front of the other cultivators of the 9 Profound Tower like a ghost. The important people of the 9 Profound Tower seemed to be familiar with the characteristics of this cultivator, so they didn't seem too surprised. Instead, they were extremely respectful. Even Zhu Jiuwan put away all the emotions on her face. This pale young man was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 Profound House, Hall Lord Yuan. Because his surname was Wei, he was addressed as Boss Wei. Of course, cultivators from other sects called him Wei Yuan. Since Lu Tianping has created a diversion and sent someone else into the thieving heaven treasure trove after drawing all of you away. Once that person comes out, Qinghu and Lu Tianping will definitely be waiting outside the 9 mysterious mountain to receive them. This is our chance, our only chance. Wei Yuan looked at everyone calmly. However, no one, including the master of the 2 rights building, dared to look him in the eye. Seeing that no one objected, Wei Yuan nodded slightly and said, in that case, it's decided. After Debao jumped into the boulder, he felt his body sink first, then something tightened under his feet. With a dong sound, Debao felt his vision brighten. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a man-made tunnel that was as tall as a person. Debao looked around and said, it really is our spirit-seeking mouse. No, it is the work of the treasure-seeking mouse clan. The thieving heaven ancestor is really powerful. With that, Debao's fat palm pressed against the stone wall. An earthen yellow vital energy entered the stone wall, and a formation restriction rune appeared on the stone wall. This formation restriction was obviously for the outside and not the inside. Therefore, even a person like Debao, who did not have much knowledge about formations, could easily find 1 or 2 nodes on the formation. At the instant the node lit up, a crystalline stone the size of a finger appeared in Debao's hand. He then pressed the small stone into one of the nodes that had lit up. Then, under Debao's astonished gaze, these lit-up runes were like tadpoles that had come to life and began to slowly move on the stone wall. For some reason, the movement of these spirit runes did not affect the operation of the formation restriction. When these runes moved and formed a new formation, Debao immediately said with joy, it's done. This space underworld essence is really extraordinary. It can actually form a simple teleportation formation so easily. As soon as he said that, the newly formed teleportation formation shone brightly. In the blink of an eye, the light faded, and Lu Ping had already arrived at the tunnel. This simple teleportation formation was formed by using the space underworld essence to reorganize the formation runes in the thieving heaven inheritance. But it was a simple teleportation formation after all, and could only teleport one person at a time. The teleportation formation flickered continuously. Samling, Green Phoenix, Tiger, Black Tortoise, Lu Taohua, and even Purple Crystal Bee King entered the thieving heaven inheritance. How is it? Is this place the same as the last time you entered? Everyone looked at Lu Ping's followers in surprise. Lu Ping asked Green Fox and the rest while plucking the space underworld essence from the stone wall. Even though Green Fox and the rest were curious about the stone in Lu Ping's hand, they still looked around. Green Fox said with joy, "That's right, this is the place. I did not expect to return so easily." Lu Ping nodded and said, "The entrance should have been mostly searched by you. Let's go to the furthest point and start from there." As soon as Lu Ping said that, DeBeo called out from the side, Wait a minute." Lu Ping looked at DeBeo and asked, "What is it?" DeBeo smiled. "Why is it said that the treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance need to be searched tens to hundreds of times before finding something that has never been discovered before? Because no one can search all of the treasures hidden by thieving heaven Laozu in one go. Even though Green Fox and the rest have searched this tunnel, there are still many things left behind." Green Tiger was a bit unhappy and said, "Hey, then why don't you find some for us to see?" DeBao let out a mischievous laugh. His large fat body unhurriedly spun around twice. A wave of earthen yellow smoke rose. After the smoke scattered, DeBao had already returned to his original form. A wild boar-sized rat appeared in front of everyone. The giant rat took 2 steps forward. It was exactly where Qinghu had been standing. The giant rat bustled about, and in the blink of an eye, a 2-foot-deep pit was created. Everyone then saw a palm-sized copper box lying at the bottom of the pit. Qinghu snorted and didn't say anything else. The giant rat at the bottom of the pit had already thrown the copper box into Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping opened the copper box in front of everyone and smiled. "Good luck. A piece of lapis lazuli, a dual-attribute earth low-grade spirit item." Then he threw the copper box back to DeBeo. DeBeo's neck flashed and the copper box disappeared. Obviously, there was a storage artifact hanging on DeBeo's neck. DeBeo climbed out of the pit and started to backfill it. Green Tiger said, "It's just a pit. We need to hurry up. Why are you backfilling it?" DeBao said seriously, "This was left behind by Ancestor Thieving Heaven. It might even be the resting place of Ancestor Thieving Heaven after he died. Let's take the treasures inside and not disturb his rest." Green Tiger curled his lips, obviously disapproving, but in his opinion, there was no need to argue with a dead person. They walked along the tunnel for hundreds of feet. Along the way, they could clearly see many traces left by the Cyan Fox 9 bandits when they came in last time. DeBeo tried his best to erase these traces and restore the original appearance of the secret treasure. At this moment, Big Bao, who had been leading the way, suddenly turned around to look at the wall beside him. Then, he let out a cry of surprise. When he arrived in front of the stone wall, a hammer and chisel had appeared in his hands. Then, he began to knock on the stone wall with clanging sounds. Green Tiger did not understand and said, "Isn't this just a stone wall, other than being dug? Everything else is naturally formed." Could it be that thieving heaven Laozu has the ability to hide things through the stone wall? Everyone looked at DeBeo. Even Lu Ping did not know what was behind this stone wall. This treasure was protected by a formation. His divine sense could not detect anything, and his eyes obviously could not see through the stone wall. At this moment, with a crisp sound of DeBeo knocking on the stone wall, a cloud of spiritual energy suddenly spurted out from the hole in the stone wall, and in the crystal light, a spirit stone appeared in front of everyone. "Isn't it just a top-grade spirit stone? Don't make a fuss about it. But this rat demon's nose is really good. He can even find the spirit stone behind a stone wall more than a foot thick." Green Tiger did not know why he was a bit talkative at this time. "Humph." A slightly childish voice rang out. Qinghu glared at the source of the voice, only to see Lu Xiaohai say coldly, "Don't forget that most of the rat demon clan inherited the bloodline of Taoist Hu, which is the same origin as you. The bloodline of the spirit-seeking rat is thin and can only be regarded as a low-level demon clan, but its bloodline has never changed." Green Tiger glared at him and said angrily, "Boy, who gave you the right to speak?" Lu Xiaohai looked at Green Tiger with contempt and said, "You only have a quarter of the multicolored tiger bloodline. How dare you be arrogant in front of me?" Chapter 1198. The Cyan Fox 9 bandits had roamed the world of cultivation for many years, and their hearts were proud and unyielding. Although they acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, they also had their own stubbornness. However, this stubbornness was exposed by Qinghu, who had a slightly irascible temperament. As a result, their stubbornness was met with a powerful counterattack from Lu Xiaohai. The Northern Ice Plains multicolored tiger clan was also a top-grade demon clan left behind by Taoist whose bloodline. It was one of the three largest tiger clans, along with the Western Desolation white-fronted tiger clan and the Endless Mountain Range tiger clan. Most of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits were mixed-blood humans and demons. Qinghu had a quarter of the multicolored tiger clan's bloodline flowing through his veins. He didn't expect that someone would be able to see through him with just a glance. Moreover, this person seemed to be a demon cultivator who had just advanced to the late core forging stage. How could Qinghu not be afraid of this person? He shouted, "Who are you?" Although Lu Xiaohai was now a late core forging stage cultivator, he looked like a 13 or 14-year-old in human form. He was only slightly stronger than his peers. Hearing Qinghu's question, Lu Xiaohai opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. Lu Ping's followers weren't affected by the pressure, but the remaining 6 of the Cyan Fox 9 bandits all carried the monster race's bloodline. They could clearly feel the pressure from their bloodline. Qinghu looked behind Lu Xiaohai with surprise in his eyes. He saw that the spirit qi behind Lu Xiaohai was surging, and it gradually condensed into the shadow of a huge white tiger with hanging eyes. "The white-fronted tiger clan," Qinghu exclaimed. "You're actually from the white-fronted tiger clan." Lu Xiaohai snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. It was Debeo who was laughing heartily at the side. When everyone looked over, they saw that Debeo had pried out the high-grade spirit stone from the wall. Lu Ping had been watching the confrontation with cold eyes. Only now did he open his mouth and ask, "Did you find something?" Debeo patted the stone wall and said, "Behind this stone wall is a spirit stone vein." "A large spirit stone vein? What?" Exclamations of shock rang out from the crowd. Qinghu exclaimed, "Impossible. The 9 Profound Mountain is so close to the 9 Profound Tower. It can be said to be the 9 Profound Tower's backyard. If there really is a large spirit stone vein here, how could the 9 Profound Tower not know about it?" Debeo snickered. "When did Treasure Master say that this mine doesn't belong to the 9 Profound Tower?" Qing Lang furrowed his brows and asked, "If it's the 9 Profound Tower's spirit stone mine, then it's even more unreasonable. Why didn't the 9 Profound Tower seal the spirit stone mine with the vein suppression spirit lock formation? Sealed, they are naturally sealed, but it doesn't look like the meridian suppression spirit lock great array." Treasure Lord was naturally beside himself with joy at this moment. No matter what, Ancestor Thieving Heaven had already secretly opened a gap in this formation. As long as he was willing, he could use the instincts of the spirit-seeking Mouse Clan to open this gap at any time. I'm afraid this is the inheritance that Ancestor Thieving Heaven left behind for our spirit-seeking Mouse Clan. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, no spirit-seeking Mouse Clan's younger generation was able to inherit any of his inheritance. Thieving Heaven Laozu had left an ingenious hole in the formation of the 9 Profound Tower's spirit stone mine, making it so that the 9 Profound Tower had not discovered it in the last 10,000 years. And this hole was not a hole, in fact. It was opened by the instinct of the spirit-seeking mice. Lu Ping quickly asked, "Can this spirit stone mine be closed after it is opened?" Debeo said, "Of course it can be closed. Our mouse demon race is good at running small streams over a long period of time. We will not do something like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs to catch the fish." Lu Ping nodded. That's good. Let's go find the other treasures first. This spirit vein will come last. Everyone agreed. Stealing the spirit stone mine was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. Moreover, the mine itself could not be left, so it was the same when they excavated it. At this time, it was more important to find the Thieving Heaven Divine Axe and Thieving Heaven Pill. DeBeo placed the chiseled stones back into the wall one by one, and the broken stones were formed into a complete stone wall. The group moved forward for another 100 feet, and along the way, they could still see the traces left behind by Qing Hu and the rest when they entered the inheritance, and DeBeo also found more than 10 things in this distance. Although none of them were precious, the most precious were only 2 ordinary strange items. There was no lack of a mid-grade spirit stone, a low-grade magic tool, and other things that were dispensable in the eyes of the group. However, everyone could see that every item that DeBeo found had been carefully hidden by someone, clearly the work of Lao Tzu, the Thieving Heaven. As a Dharma adept, why would he spend so much energy on these insignificant things? No one could figure out what this ancestor was thinking. Only DeBao was happily looking around for them. It's here. Last time, we were ultimately stopped here. Qing Hu looked at the barrier in front of the tunnel entrance and turned to speak to Lu Ping. The light blue barrier was like an upright sea level, and Lu Ping's eyes flashed with green light, but he asked, "What method did you use to enter last time?" Azure Fox said, "Ninth sister had some understanding of formations, and she was only a hair's breadth away from becoming a formation master. However, she was powerless against this barrier. It's a pity that Ninth sister was severely injured when she tried to forcibly break through the formation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have died. Forcibly broke the formation. No wonder." Lu Ping smiled bitterly. Thieving Heaven Ancestor created such a divine temple space in the inheritance, and the reason why it could be hidden in the 9 Xian Mountain is because this space is attached to the 9 Xian Mountain's sect-guarding array. When you two try to break the array by force, you actually face the backlash of the entire 9 Xian Mountain's sect-guarding array. You were lucky to only be injured and not killed. At this moment, Lu Ping finally understood the mysteries of the Thieving Heaven's treasure. The treasure was attached to the 9 Xian Mountain's array formation and created this space. No wonder the 9 Xian Tower didn't discover it. No wonder the large spirit stone mine discovered by DeBeo wasn't protected by the vein suppression spirit lock array formation. The spirit stone mine was directly within the range of the 9 Xian Mountain's array formation, so there was no need for the array formation to protect it. Qing Hu naturally knew what the sect protection formation meant, but to be able to find a loophole in the sect protection formation, how powerful was this Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu? Hearing this, Qing Hu immediately shouted, "What? The sect protection formation of the sacred land? Then let's quickly retreat. No one will be able to break this barrier." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "Although this barrier is an array formation drawn from one of the sect-guarding arrays, it can only be considered as borrowing it. It's far from the 9 mystical pavilions' sect-guarding array formation." As soon as Lu Ping's voice faded, he opened his hands and 2 charms appeared on his palms. Rays of 5-colored light burst out from the charms. Then, Lu Ping placed his palms on the blue barrier and the 5-colored light shone brightly. The 7th Qing K of the Qing Hu 9 bandits looked at the 5-colored light in Lu Ping's hands and exclaimed, "Ah, 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that the wave-like blue shield in front of him was corroded by the 5-colored light, leaving 2 huge holes. Furthermore, the holes were constantly expanding. In the end, the blue shield completely turned into spiritual energy and dissipated in the air. "It's broken." DeBeo excitedly ran towards the stone room behind the barrier, but before he could take 2 steps, he abruptly stopped. Then with a plop, he knelt on the ground, his head abruptly smashing into the ground. Lu Ping and the others also walked into the stone room, and when they saw DeBeo's sudden action, they thought they had fallen into an ambush and stopped in their tracks. Lu Ping raised his head to look at where DeBeo knelt, and saw a huge rat corpse that was 3 meters long in a corner of the stone room. This huge rat corpse only had a skeleton and a piece of rat skin left, and the abdomen of the corpse was clearly caved in, showing that it had suffered a heavy injury. Under the left front claw of the huge rat was a crescent-shaped axe that was 2 feet long, and the blade was half a foot long. Seeing that Debeo knelt on the ground without saying anything, Lu Ping asked softly, "Is this the remains of Lao Tzu, the thieving god?" Debeo nodded. "There's no mistake. It's the bloodline of the spirit-seeking mice." Then, Debeo pointed at the axe that was pressed by the huge rat corpse and said, "That's almost the thieving god's axe." Qinghu and the others all looked at this famous spiritual treasure in the cultivation world, but Lu Ping only glanced at it, and then looked around the stone room. Seeing that Lu Ping did not pay attention to the axe, Qinghu walked up and wanted to take the spiritual treasure in her hand. But Lu Ping suddenly said, "Do you know that spiritual treasures have spirits?" Qinghu was stunned, and she took 2 steps back. Then, she heard Lu Ping's voice come out, "How long can you hide?" As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, the axe that was pressed under the huge rat corpse suddenly broke free from the huge rat's claw, and a series of runes flashed on the surface of the axe. The axe flew up on its own, and then chopped in the direction of Lu Ping, and a blade light appeared in front of Lu Ping. Qinghu and the others were shocked. When the axe flew up on its own, they could see that it was indeed a first tribulation spiritual treasure, but the power of the axe was beyond their expectations. However, Lu Ping seemed to be prepared for this. Just before the axe chopped at him, he had already used the thin, flowing water sword. When the blade light was about to touch him, the 2 sword lights from the flying revolving chain slash arrived one after the other and neutralized the blade light. The power of the thin, flowing water sword when combined could even compete with a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but this time, it did not gain the upper hand when it collided with the axe, which was also a first tribulation spiritual treasure. It should be known that the giant axe was not controlled by anyone, nor was it supported by spiritual ether. Under such circumstances, it was still able to withstand Lu Ping's great divine swordsmanship, which meant that the quality of the axe was better. Chapter 11:99. Since there was no one controlling the axe, the body that was suspended in the air seemed to be swaying after the blow. Lu Ping looked at it and smiled. "Still not coming out? Why? Do you still want to use the last blow to prepare for another attack?" Everyone seemed to be a little puzzled. Only Qinghu seemed to have realized something, but she did not find the expected hidden object with her divine sense. Then she heard Lu Ping said, "You have seen the effect of the blow just now. Now you should still have the power to make another attack. What else do you think you can do?" At this time, everyone had already followed Lu Ping's gaze to the giant rat corpse lying on the ground. They were shocked. Could it be that thieving heaven Lao Tzu was still alive? Or did he leave some tricks behind? Otherwise, how could he still control the axe to attack them? Just as everyone was thinking about it, they heard a sneaky voice suddenly sounded from the giant rat corpse. "Who are you? Why did you come to the old man's cave mansion?" The image of a short, shriveled, long-bearded, shifty-eyed old man immediately appeared in everyone's consciousness. Could it be that this person was really thieving heaven Lao Tzu? It had been so many years, yet he was still alive. Lu Ping smiled and said, "You really know how to play tricks." As expected of thieving heaven Lao Tzu's spiritual treasure. After saying that, Lu Ping stretched out his hand towards the direction of the giant rat. The axe that had fallen to the ground again rose into the air, but this time, it flew towards Lu Ping's hand. Suddenly, an invisible force rose from the back of the axe and pulled the axe flying towards Lu Ping from the opposite direction. Suddenly, the axe was fixed in the air again. Lu Ping smiled slightly. He stretched out his palm and hooked his 4 fingers back. The axe slowly pulled towards Lu Ping again. Obviously, the strange force was not a match for Lu Ping at all. However, at this time, the voice that sounded from the giant rat corpse suddenly let out a smug sneer. Then, the surface of the axe suddenly lit up with a light that was more devastating than before. The force pulling the axe in the opposite direction suddenly disappeared, and the axe suddenly chopped towards Lu Ping at a speed faster than before. In an instant, the axe arrived before Lu Ping. However, the scene of Lu Ping panicking and closing his eyes to wait for death did not appear. Instead, a smile appeared on Lu Ping's face. He only had time to say one sentence. After nearly 10,000 years, You can still maintain your spirituality to this extent. Not bad. Then, 9 layers of light burst out from Lu Ping's palm. Each ray of light formed a large hand of spiritual energy that wrapped around the hand of spiritual energy in front of it. Then, the large hand of spiritual energy moved towards the axe that was coming towards him. However, each of the large hands of spiritual energy that clenched onto the axe was cut through layer by layer. Then, the bright light on the axe was constantly being worn away. After the 9th layer of the golden meteorite astral shield was cut through, the light on the axe had mostly dissipated. Next, it was time to face Lu Ping's body. The strange laughter rang out once more. Although the power of the axe had been reduced by more than half, it was still not something that a cultivator's body could block. However, Lu Ping just happened to block it. The index finger and thumb of his right hand happened to pass through the light and accurately pinched the axe's body. The axe could not move even half an inch forward in midair. The strange laughter stopped abruptly as if it was pinched by the neck. Not only that, but the people around Lu Ping were also stunned for a moment. Even if the power of the axe had mostly dissipated, it was still not something that a cultivator could block with their body. However, Lu Ping used his body to block the attack and forcibly grabbed the spiritual treasure in his hand. Just how strong was Lu Ping's body? In the end, a long and thin bloody mark was left on the web between Lu Ping's thumb and forefinger. Drops of blood seeped out, and then a blue light flashed. After refining the Wonder Dew, Lu Ping's essential energy contained a powerful life force. It had a unique advantage when it came to healing injuries. For example, small wounds like these usually healed very quickly. Still not coming out? Lu Ping held the axe in his left hand. Then, he stretched out his right hand and pointed it in the direction of the mummy. Don't. I surrender. I surrender. A black light flew out of the mummy's mouth and quickly hid behind Debeo. It turned into a humanoid shadow. It really was a shriveled old man. He timidly peeked out from behind Debeo and looked at Lu Ping. Qinghu hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Are you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe?" Among everyone present, the little old man seemed to feel a sense of familiarity from Debeo's aura. In the face of Qinghu's question, the little old man did not say a word. He just hid behind Debeo and did not dare to come out. However, his eyes would occasionally look at Lu Ping, who was not far away and no longer paying attention to him. Among everyone present, only Lu Ping made him feel a deep sense of fear. Otherwise, he would not have concentrated his only 2 attacks on Lu Ping. Hey, old man, I'm asking you a question. Why are you always hiding behind Treasure Master? Debeo turned around several times, but the old man's ability was much greater than his. No matter how he turned, the old man was always able to hide behind him. After a long time, Debeo felt an eerie feeling at the back of his neck, which made his hair stand on end. The old man's strange voice sounded behind Debeo. What is the relationship between you and that dead mouse lying on the ground? I can feel that your auras are too similar. Debeo protested. That is our spirit-seeking mouse clan's old senior, Laozu the thieving heaven. He is? Hey, that's not right. Hey, aren't you the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing axe? Shouldn't you know more about him than me? The old man's eyes were suddenly at a loss. Although his figure was extremely illusory, Debeo's question just now had clearly puzzled him. He forcefully pulled his beard and said, "What do I know? What is the heaven-stealing axe that you were talking about? Is it the axe that was snatched by that person? If that is the case, then the old man is indeed the weapon spirit of that axe, but I don't know about that big mouse. But his corpse is very comfortable inside. I have always been inside all these years." Debeo asked again, "All these years? How long has it been?" "How long?" The old man was confused again. "A very long time. I have always been here. I can't remember clearly." At this time, Lu Ping's voice suddenly sounded again. "Oh, so that's how it is." Once Lu Ping's voice sounded, the old man was immediately frightened and hid behind Debeo, not even daring to show his head. Debeo asked Lu Ping, "Boss, what's wrong?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "You have been following me around all these years and have seen a lot of rare treasures. How can you not know that without the nourishment of primeval essence, a weapon spirit's spirituality will dissipate and even return to being a spirit-nurturing treasure? Even if the weapon spirit's body doesn't dissipate, the weapon spirit's memory will slowly dissipate. The heaven-stealing divine axe behind you was able to persist for 10,000 years without dissipating. It is already very rare. Do you think it can remember anything? DeBeo said. But the power of this guy's 2 attacks just now was not small. There is no trace of spirituality dissipating at all. Lu Ping said, this is also what I was puzzled about just now. Now it seems that all the mysteries are under this thieving Heaven Laozu's corpse and the heaven-stealing divine axe's spirituality. Although this heaven-stealing divine axe was only a first tribulation spirit treasure, its quality was obviously among the best among the first tribulation spirit treasures. It even had some of the characteristics of a second tribulation spirit treasure. Out of the weapon spirit's instinct, it could even absorb and refine a part of the spiritual energy and store it in the spirit treasure itself. This was the fundamental reason why the heaven-stealing divine axe could achieve 2 attacks before. It was just that the spiritual energy absorbed and stored by the body was not refined by the cultivator's primeval essence, so it had no use for the spirit treasure's weapon spirit. Therefore, this weapon spirit looked so weak that only a thin shadow was left, and it could collapse at any time. And thieving Heaven Laozu's method was even more brilliant. He clearly drew out a branch vein from the 9 mystical towers' spirit vein to suppress this stone room. Originally, it might have been to recuperate in this stone room, but when Lu Ping looked at the collapsed abdomen of the giant rat's corpse, he clearly did not wait for thieving Heaven Laozu to heal and died because of his heavy injuries. On the other hand, due to its instinct to protect itself, the artifact spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe hid itself in the corpse of the giant rat, which was why it could barely keep its spiritual body from dissipating after nearly 10,000 years. However, its memories and the like had all disappeared, leaving only its instinct to protect itself. DeBeo did not give up and asked the old man behind him, heaven-stealing divine axe, thieving Heaven Laozu, spirit-seeking rat, treasure-seeking rat, you don't remember any of them? The old man shook his head and said, they all sound familiar, but I can't remember anything. Lu Ping shook his head and said, don't talk nonsense. I'm sure you know your current situation better than anyone else. If you don't want to dissipate, quickly find someone to recognize as your master. With the nourishment of primeval essence, you can slowly recover your spirituality. The old man was extremely afraid of Lu Ping and did not dare to object to any of Lu Ping's orders, but he still asked timidly, then I'll recognize this little fatty as my master? This little fatty is so nice and kind. DeBeo immediately beamed with joy, but Qing, who beside him, was not the slightest bit annoyed. Lu Ping laughed coldly and said, he only has a little bit of cultivation. Even if you break open his bone marrow and suck him dry, he won't be able to satisfy your needs. Don't even think about it before he enters the Dharma stage. The old man's eyes darted around 7 or 8 times, and he said, then can I follow you? Lu Ping glared at him and pointed at Qing Hu, saying, I don't need her. Stop talking nonsense and just follow her. The old man was slightly disappointed, but seeing that Qing Hu seemed to be the most powerful person among them besides Lu Ping, and hearing from Lu Ping's tone, it seemed that the little fatty in front of him would still follow DeBeo after he grew up. The old man could only nod. Then, the old man turned into a streak of black light and flew toward the heaven-stealing divine axe in Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping threw the axe in his hand, and the black light disappeared into it, then flew into Qing Hu's hand. Qing Hu suddenly spat out a stream of pure primeval essence into the axe in her hand, and the heaven-stealing divine axe immediately shone with a black light. Chapter 1200. Seeing that the thieving divine axe was gradually being refined by Qing Hu, Lu Ping slowly walked forward and bowed to the giant rat's corpse, then turned to the others and said, this stone room may be connected to other stone rooms and secret pavilions. Everyone, split up and search. See if you find any pill recipes, spirit pills, or spirit herbs. Please hand them over to me. Lu Ping's words were, in fact, a way to tell the crowd that whatever was found would belong to the person who found it. Naturally, The crowd was delighted. However, when they saw Lu Ping bowing to the giant rat's carcass, they also searched carefully and didn't destroy anything in the stone chamber. After all, Lu Ping was an extremely famous alchemy grandmaster, so Qinghu and the others naturally knew about him. They also understood that Lu Ping's main goal in entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance was to obtain the various Thieving Heaven pills refined by Lao Tzu. This stone chamber was extremely spacious. It was more than 10 zhang long and several zhang wide. There were many stone cabinets, stone cupboards, and stone shelves around the stone walls. Everyone rummaged through them, and from time to time, they would make a pleasant discovery. Only Qinghu did not search for treasures with the others. After refining the thieving divine axe, Qinghu was still nourishing it with true yuan. Although the weapon spirit of the thieving divine axe had been nourished by the spirit vein in the stone room for close to 10,000 years, its spirituality was still severely damaged. If not for everyone's discovery, the weapon spirit would probably disappear in a few decades. This was also the reason why the weapon spirit so easily followed Lu Ping's instructions and chose a new master after being defeated by Lu Ping. Qinghu naturally knew that if she wanted to dig deeper into the thieving divine axe's potential and make it more compatible with her, this was the most crucial moment, and Qinghu naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Moreover, the most precious item in the treasure trove was already in her hands. She had her own discerning eyes, so she wouldn't search for other treasures in the treasure trove with the others. Lu Ping turned to Debao and said, "What do you plan to do with the giant rat's corpse?" Debao said, "This is indeed the thieving heaven Lao Tzu. No ordinary rat demon would have such a huge body. Only the thieving heaven Lao Tzu who had advanced to the Dharma stage could do so. Although the Joshuan Tower did not discover his death here, once we leave the thieving heaven's inheritance, that may not be the case, so I plan to take the corpse with me." Lu Ping nodded and saw Debao step forward with a storage instrument in his hand. A yellow light enveloped the giant rat's corpse, and when the light faded, the corpse had already been stored in Debao's storage instrument. After the giant rat's carcass disappeared, Lu Ping saw that there was a secret chamber behind the carcass. It was just that no one noticed it because it was blocked by the giant rat's carcass, not even their divine senses. Lu Ping used his divine sense to explore the entrance of the secret room, and found that this time, his divine sense had successfully entered the secret room through the hole. Not only that, the thick spiritual qi in the stone room was also leaking out from this secret room, and the branch vein that the thieving heaven Lao Tzu had drawn from the Joshuan Mountain's spirit vein was in that secret room. Lu Ping turned to Debao and said, "After we return, before we bury the thieving heaven Lao Tzu's corpse, see if there are any treasures hidden in it." Debao and Lu Ping had been partners for a long time, so he naturally knew what Lu Ping meant, so he nodded and said, "Don't worry." Although the stone room was huge, the secret room was extremely small, especially the entrance to the secret room, which was not high. Otherwise, it would not have been blocked by the corpse of the giant rat. Debao could be considered short and fat, but he still had to lower his head slightly to pass through the entrance of the secret room. However, the height of the door was about the same as that of the shriveled old man who had been the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe. The two entered the secret room one after another, and the first thing they saw was a 5 feet tall pitch-black pill furnace standing in the center of the secret room. Lu Ping and Debao looked at each other, and they could see the excitement in each other's eyes, because both of them could see that the pill furnace in front of them was a magic treasure pill furnace that was fused with a treasure restriction. There were 2 big words engraved on the black and shiny furnace wall: Thieving Heaven. This was the most direct connection to Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu that Lu Ping and the others saw after entering this treasure trove. Previously, everyone had almost confirmed that this treasure trove was left by Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu, and there was also the giant rat corpse and the axe spirit treasure lying in the stone room. But after all, the cultivation level of the rat corpse could not be seen, and the spirit treasure spirit had long lost its memory inheritance, so there was no evidence that could directly prove that this treasure trove was left by Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu. But now that this magic treasure pill furnace was engraved with the words, Thieving Heaven, it made Lu Ping very clear that this treasure trove was indeed left by Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu. Lu Ping walked forward and slapped the wall of the pill furnace, and the lid flew up. DeBeo jumped on the edge of the pill furnace, looked inside the pill furnace, then sniffed and said, "There were pills inside, but after such a long time, they have already become useless pills." The moment the lid flew up, Lu Ping had already judged from the smell that the pills inside were already useless, but Lu Ping still carefully took out the 3 loose pills and 2 small piles of pill ashes and put them into 5 jade bottles. From the reputation of Thieving Heaven Pill, this Thieving Heaven Laozu was definitely a top alchemy grandmaster. Whether these 5 useless pills were Thieving Heaven pills or not, it was worth Lu Ping to carefully investigate them. If they were really Thieving Heaven pills, Lu Ping could at least find some of the spirit herbs needed for the pill recipe from these useless pills. At this time, DeBeo was already lying at the bottom of the cauldron. There was a spirit gathering formation below, which should be used to nourish the spirit fire for pill refinement. However, the spirit stones embedded in the spirit gathering formation plate had already turned into ashes, and the center of the spirit gathering formation, which was originally used to ignite the spirit fire, was also empty. DeBeo sniffed at the center of the spirit gathering formation inside. "Boss, it's a pity. The spirit fire ignited in this spirit gathering formation is at least heaven rank. It's a pity that the spirit energy has dissipated and the spirituality is lost. This spirit fire is also useless." Lu Ping looked at the traces of the spirit fire in the center of the spirit gathering formation and nodded. "It is indeed a pity. This is a heaven rank middle grade flying duck dazzling fire. Although its effect in pill refinement is not as good as the Silver Dew spirit fire, it is still a famous spirit fire in the cultivation world." When DeBeo heard this, he felt even more distressed. Lu Ping smiled and said, "To be able to find a magic treasure cauldron is already a heaven rank pill furnace. Don't be greedy. Don't push your luck." DeBeo looked around the secret room and saw that there were stone shelves on 3 sides of the secret room. On the shelves, there were jade bottles of pills, jade boxes used to store spirit herbs, and dozens of different kinds of jade slips. DeBeo had already excitedly rushed towards the stone shelves, while Lu Ping walked towards the stone shelves containing the jade slips. DeBeo shouted, "Boss, don't you want to take a look at these spirit pills and spirit herbs? Maybe inside are the Stealing Heaven pill and the spirit herbs used to refine the Stealing Heaven pill." Lu Ping smiled and said, "After nearly 10,000 years, even if there is a spirit sealing talisman on the jade bottle, the medicinal properties of the pills inside have already lost and become useless pills. As for the jade boxes containing spirit herbs, I'm afraid it's the same. Don't look at them." Unexpectedly, when Lu Ping said this and picked up a jade slip, the jade slip also broke into several pieces. Lu Ping was slightly surprised and picked up another jade slip. This jade slip was not broken, but the contents sealed inside had already disappeared without a trace. DeBeo's laughter came from the side and said, "Boss, it seems that you didn't find anything there." Lu Ping pointed fiercely at DeBeo, then smiled helplessly. The passage of time was the most terrifying. Even the jade slips sealed with all kinds of inheritance contents had broken. Lu Ping told DeBeo, "Whether there are usable spirit pills or spirit herbs in those jade bottles and jade boxes, take them away. If there is time in the future, this Thieving Heaven Laozu's attainments in pill refinement must be studied." With that said, Lu Ping's hand tightened. After more than 10 jade slips either broke or the contents sealed inside were annihilated, he finally found an intact jade slip. Lu Ping was overjoyed, and his divine sense immediately penetrated into the jade slip, but then the joy on his face froze. This was actually a blank jade slip. Lu Ping was annoyed, and he was about to throw this jade slip away, but after his fingers pinched the surface of the jade slip, he was slightly stunned. Then he raised the jade slip in his hand in front of his eyes. Green light flowed in his eyes, and his pupils even had a slight golden-red color. DeBeo was surprised when he saw Lu Ping holding a jade slip in front of his eyes. Jade slips were usually imprinted with divine sense, and after being sealed, the cultivator could check the contents inside. It was the most intuitive and convenient method, but it was a bit strange for Lu Ping to look at a jade slip in front of his eyes. "Boss, what's going on?" Lu Ping's face also gradually showed a hint of surprise. Hearing DeBeo's question, he said, "This Thieving Heaven Laozu is very unique. The content of a pill recipe is not engraved in the jade slip with divine sense, but carved on the jade slip with the method of carving in the mortal world. But this carving is obviously much more subtle than the carving of mortals. If I didn't notice it when I touched it just now, even I would have missed it. DeBeo smiled and said, "Seeing Boss is so excited. The content carved on this jade slip must be extraordinary." Lu Ping nodded and sighed. Thieving Heaven Old Ancestor is truly a knowledgeable person. There are many different kinds of Thieving Heaven pellets in the cultivation world, but this one is probably the only one that can truly be considered as the Thieving Heaven. No, it's not just Thieving Heaven. It's heaven-defying. DeBeo suddenly became spirited and hurriedly asked, "What is recorded on it?" Lu Ping threw the jade slip into DeBeo's hands and said, "Calamity Thunder Pill." Thieving Heaven Laozu called this pill the Calamity Thunder Pill. You can look at the specific content yourself. As long as you use your eyesight a little, you will be able to see it. Calamity Thunder Pill? DeBeo looked at the jade slip suspiciously, just like how Lu Ping did, and after a while, he exclaimed, This is impossible." Lu Ping smiled. "Why is it impossible otherwise? How could Thieving Heaven Laozu pass the first Thunder trial and advance to the middle Dharma stage?" Chapter 1201. The Thunder Calamity Pill, as the name suggested, was a pill that could withstand the Thunder Calamity. However, this kind of heaven-defying pill could only be used to withstand one Thunder Calamity, and it could only withstand the 9th Thunder Calamity in the first Thunder Calamity. The others were useless. In other words, to use the Thunder Calamity Pill, not only could it only be used when a cultivator entered the mid-Dharma stage for the first Thunder Calamity, but it could only be used after the first 8th Thunder Calamity. I really didn't expect the Thieving Heaven Ancestor to be able to refine such a magical pill. It's not that he could refine such a pill, but I didn't expect him to have obtained a relic from the creation of the heavens. A relic from the creation of the heavens? DeBao exclaimed, turning the jade slip in his hand over and over again. He asked doubtfully, "That's it? This is a relic from the creation of the heavens?" Lu Ping took the jade slip from DeBeo's hand, weighed it in his hand, and said, "Maybe it can't be considered a relic from the creation of the heavens. It's just that when the 7th Patriarch opened the heavens, there were no jade slips passed down in the world of cultivation. The things used to record were just paper, jade tablets, or bamboo slips, and the recorded content was engraved on them. In order to make these things carry more content, the cultivators often used extremely fine characters." DeBeo said, "Yes, this can only prove that this jade tablet may be an item passed down from that time, but it can't be said to be a relic from the creation of the heavens, right? However, the quality of this jade slip is undeniable. The other jade slips have been turned to dust after nearly 10,000 years, but this jade slip is undamaged. This shows that it is extraordinary. Even if it is not a relic from the creation of the heavens, it is probably left behind by a powerful cultivator from the creation of the heavens." Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "There's no need to rush to a conclusion. You have to take a look at the contents of this jade. Although the method to concoct the Tribulation Thunder Pellet is recorded in it, it's full of speculation and speculation. However, the last paragraph is very certain. It says that the Tribulation Thunder Pellet can be used to block the 9th lightning strike of the first lightning tribulation, but it has no effect on the 2nd, 3rd lightning tribulation, or even the 7th lightning strike of a certain lightning tribulation. This kind of certainty is completely different from the uncertainty and extreme hesitation in the introduction of the alchemy process." DeBeo said, "Boss, you mean these 2 paragraphs were not left behind by one person?" Lu Ping laughed and scolded, "Nonsense. Can't you see that the font of the 2 paragraphs are different?" Obviously, the first person recorded this guess, and the second person finally refined this kind of pill and tested its effect. However, there are still some things hidden in it. Your cultivation is not enough, so I'm afraid you can't see them. Lu Ping extended the jade slip to DeBeo again, but this time he did not hand it to him. Instead, a dense stream of spiritual essence surged in Lu Ping's hand, almost dyeing this warm white jade blue. Immediately after, a hidden sentence appeared in the upper left corner of this white jade. Turtle Tao, ancestor of the South Sea, sit and listen. Debeo was stunned. This was recorded by Taoist Gui's followers? Taoist Gui is the originator of alchemy in the world of cultivation. If this guess about the Tribulation Thunderpill was written by Taoist Gui and then meticulously recorded on jade slips by his followers, then it makes sense. Lu Ping nodded and said, "It should be so. It is said that Taoist Gui is fond of sleeping, and no one knows when he will come. In order to make it convenient for his followers to listen to his teachings when he wakes up, they almost always carry this kind of jade slip with them. Thus, when Taoist Gui, who is fond of sleeping, suddenly wakes up, he will only be awake for a day or two, or even an hour or two before falling asleep again. Therefore, his followers will try their best to record his lectures every time he temporarily wakes up, and then comprehend them later. Because most of the time, Taoist Gui will not repeatedly explain during his lectures, so these followers will not have the time to comprehend on the spot." Debeo sighed. This kind of heaven-defying panacea is only a record of Taoist Gui's guess. I didn't expect it to actually work. The seventh patriarch of Heaven Splitter is really unfathomable and awe-inspiring. But, Debeo then asked doubtfully, "Boss, how do you know so much?" Lu Ping chuckled. "I was once instructed by a pure young Laozu, so I know a little more." Debeo immediately exclaimed, "What? Boss, you were instructed by pure young Laozu? But how could I not know?" Usually, Debeo is always by boss's side, but he has never noticed that you were instructed by pure young Laozu. Lu Ping smiled but did not say anything. He turned around and began to read the other jade slips. On the side, Debeo was still a little unwilling to give up. He said, "Boss, are we not going to refine such a heaven-defying panacea? This panacea is indeed amazing, but it's just a chicken rib." Debao shouted, "How can this be of little value? It can block a bolt of tribulation lightning. Have you seen the consequences of taking the Thunder Calamity Panacea? Although your level of practice has reached the mid-Dharma stage, your lifespan will only increase by half. Not only that, but this kind of heaven-defying method also comes with a high price. The ninth lightning strike is the most important for the Dharma stage. Without the ninth lightning strike, the practitioner's ability will be lower than that of the same level practitioners, but the key is that they will not have a chance to improve further in the future. This Thunder Calamity Panacea is actually a one-off deal." Debeo was still unwilling to give up. He said, "I think this panacea is still useful, especially for those practitioners who are not very confident of surviving the lightning strikes." Lu Ping said, "Rather than risking your life to overcome the first 8 lightning bolts, it's better to give it a shot on the 9th lightning bolt. At the very least, you'll have a chance to improve after you succeed. Or, you can make more preparations after you overcome the lightning tribulation and strengthen your foundation. It's better than failing at the last moment." Debeo cried out, "Boss, do you think everyone is like you, hugging a treasure and summoning lightning strikes together to survive? There are thousands of practitioners in the world of practice, but how many of them can reach the mid-Dharma stage? How many practitioners reach the early Dharma stage as their limit? How many early Dharma adepts who summon their first lightning strike eventually fall at the 9th lightning strike? If there is a panacea that avoids the 9th lightning strike and a practitioner who is on the verge of death after surviving the first 8 lightning strikes, why would they care about their lifespan and the slowing down of their growth? Their priority would be to survive." Lu Ping thought about it and felt that what Zhou Donghuang said made sense. As he continued to search for a jade scroll that was still intact, he sighed and said, "What you said makes sense, but can't you take a good look at the contents of the jade scroll? How many types of spirit herbs are there in the world of practice today that are used to refine the Calamity Thunderpill?" Debeo was taken aback. He took a closer look at the various types of spirit herbs recorded in the jade scroll and gasped. He said, "My goodness, these are all priceless items that have disappeared from the world of practice a long time ago. If the Calamity Thunderpill really needs to be refined with these things, then it's really not worth it." This time, it was Lu Ping who said, "It's something that can save a life. How could it be worth it? It's just that the rare herbs used to refine the Calamity Thunderpill might not have disappeared from the world of practice." Debeo gasped and said, "Boss, You mean to say that these rare herbs only exist in the world of practice in the holy lands of the human race and the giant demon tribes? Could it be that the ancestor of the thieving heaven targeted the 9 mystical tower to steal the spirit herbs from the 9 mystical towers' herb garden to refine the calamity thunder pill? Lu Ping picked up a jade scroll and looked at it as he said, "That's just one possibility." After all, the thieving heaven Laozu was already in the mid-Dharma stage at that time. No one knows if he had used the calamity thunder pill. However, he rarely fights with people in the world of practice and usually runs away when he sees people. So many people think that the thieving heaven Laozu is the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. After saying that, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The records on this jade scroll are also quite interesting." DeBeo saw that Lu Ping's gaze was not on the jade scroll and knew that this jade scroll was not like the previous one, where the contents were carved on the jade scroll. Instead, it was like a normal jade scroll, where the contents were checked using divine sense. DeBeo could not help but ask, "Is there anything unusual about it?" Lu Ping kept the jade scroll and said, "There's also an elixir recipe inside. It's a 6th grade Dharma pill." 6th grade? Dharma? DeBeo mumbled. Could it be that this elixir? Lu Ping nodded and smiled. Although a practitioner at the peak of the core forging stage who has condensed a 6th grade golden core still has a glimmer of hope of advancing to the Dharma stage, it's just too difficult. Practitioners often have to go through many hardships and pay a high price to fight for this slim chance of survival. Furthermore, advancing to the early Dharma stage is already the peak of a practitioner's practice. This 6th grade Dharma pill is a type of elixir used to forcefully raise the level of cultivation of a 6th grade golden core to the Dharma stage. Although there is still no possibility of advancing further after advancing to the early Dharma stage, it avoids many unknown pains and the price paid is relatively small. Also, the chances of success are higher. DeBeo said, "I'm afraid this kind of elixir is extremely difficult to refine, right?" Lu Ping nodded. However, compared to the time when Jinling had almost used the entire sex power to push Tianlu and Tianjiang, the 2 Laozu, from the 6th grade golden core to the early Dharma stage, the price paid for a 6th grade Dharma pill was much lower. This was also why Tianjiang and Tianlu, the 2 Laozu, were so determined to fight to the death for Jinling, especially Tianjiang Laozu, who lived on his own will. Now, no one knew if the Daijinling's treasured ship would come to an end after it was repaired. Of course, this was partly because he had sacrificed his life for his ideals, but it was also because he was repaying a debt of gratitude. At this time, DeBeo's cheers came from the other side. He said, "Boss, come and take a look at these things." Chapter 1202. Compared to spirit grasses, spirit pills were easier for cultivators to refine and absorb, and they were the condensation of countless essences. But compared to spirit pills, it was easier for spirit grasses to maintain their medicinal properties, so they could be preserved for a longer period of time. Furthermore, thieving heaven Laozu created this secret room to store his pill refinement inheritance. It was just that too much time had passed. Close to 10,000 years was enough to erase all traces, but there were still some things left behind, including a portion of the spirit grasses that thieving heaven Laozu carefully preserved. Lu Ping was stunned when he saw the spirit herbs sealed in layers of spirit-sealing charms. Then, he was overjoyed. These spirit herbs were all rare and precious herbs in the cultivation world. Not only that, but they were also exceptionally mature. From the beginning to the end, all of them were at least 3,000 years old. Lu Ping carefully looked at the spirit herbs and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to use them as soon as possible." DeBao said, "That's right. Although a small portion of the spirit herbs have been preserved in the jade boxes, it is clear that the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs have reached their limit. After opening the jade boxes, I'm afraid they won't be able to hide for another 3 to 5 years before all the spirit herbs become useless. Let's keep them first." There were close to 100 jade boxes containing spirit grasses on this stone shelf, but the 2 of them only took away 10 jade boxes after searching for a long time. The spirit grasses in the other jade boxes were all wasted. In this stone room, of the 3 stone shelves on the stone walls, the spirit pills on the stone shelf were all scrapped. The stone shelf on the side with the inheritance jade slips only had 2 jade slips that recorded the pill formula. The stone shelf with the most harvest was the jade box that contained the spirit grass. DeBeo searched the entire stone chamber a few more times and found a bunch of random things. Naturally, none of them caught Lu Ping's attention. Even DeBeo couldn't bear to throw them away, so he kept them all into his interspatial mystic instrument. It's about time. We can't find anything else in this stone room. Let's go, boss. Outside the stone room, Qing Hu and the rest, as well as Samling and the rest, had their own harvests. Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance was naturally very rich, but this Laozu clearly had a special hobby, which was to hide the treasures in pieces. No matter which corner they were in, they could find something. Sometimes, an extremely valuable item wasn't hidden at all. Sometimes, after following a vague clue and racking one's brains, one could only obtain an ordinary item from an unimaginable place, which was a great disappointment. The treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance have always been hidden for the sake of hiding, not because they are valuable. This is the nature of us spirits seeking mice. Treasures are important, but it is more important to hide them well. DeBeo had previously been surprised by the endless number of treasures in the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, but DeBeo explained it like this. Therefore, no one can know the location of all the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance, and no one will know whether the treasures in a Thieving Heaven's inheritance have been searched or not. Therefore, every time a Thieving Heaven's inheritance is discovered, after a period of large-scale excavation, there will still be a continuous flow of people entering the Thieving Heaven's inheritance to search for treasures. Occasionally, someone will be lucky enough to find 1 or 2 items, causing every Thieving Heaven's inheritance to become a treasure land that will last for tens or even hundreds of years. It can be considered a miracle in the cultivation world. The secret room had 4 stone walls, 3 of which were filled with spirit pills, spirit herbs, and pill recipes. Only 1 stone wall was empty. It was just a stone wall, but at this time, Lu Ping's attention was attracted by this empty stone wall. DeBeo, go call the green fox here. One of Lu Ping's palms was already on this wall, and his eyes were no longer flickering with green light, but green-golden light that illuminated the entire wall. His eyes had also turned golden-red, and when he looked at DeBeo, DeBeo was so frightened that he took a step back. The group spent several hours in the treasure trove. Sai and Fox refined and nurtured the Sky Snatcher's divine axe for a while. When she was certain that the artifact spirit had been nurtured enough, she joined in the treasure hunt. When the green fox came in, Lu Ping's palms were already on the stone wall. At this time, not only DeBeo and the green fox, but the others also sensed that something was wrong. They all stood outside the secret room and looked in. They saw 2 dense bluish-purple lights flowing along the arms of the green fox and into the stone wall that Lu Ping's palms were on, and the front of the stone wall was dyed blue. Seeing the green fox come in, Lu Ping asked, "Can you use the thieving divine axe well?" The green fox looked at the stone wall and said, "I can use it well, but the more subtle monster trainers may need more time to practice." The green fox took out the thieving divine axe. The shriveled old man's appearance was obviously based on the appearance of the thieving Laozu from 10,000 years ago, but when he saw Lu Ping, he immediately nodded and bowed. Lu Ping asked, "Do you remember anything about this stone wall?" The thieving divine axe shook his head, and with a terrified expression, he said, "No, I don't remember anything." When these 2 auras had rushed down from the sky, the impact that each of them had on Lu Ping was no less than that of a mid-Dharma adept. How could Lu Ping be forced into such a pathetic state by 2 hasty slashes? At this time, Green Fox, DeBeo, Samling, and the others jumped out of the door one after another. Seeing the thin water long stream swords circling around Lu Ping, they all felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Green Fox's strength was second only to Lu Ping, and she quickly discovered the 2 attackers. She said, "Each of us, let's deal with one each. Let's end this quickly, or else something might happen." Unexpectedly, Lu Ping raised his hand to stop her. He said, "There's no rush. There's something fishy about this." The 2 auras slowly approached Lu Ping and the others, but they maintained a certain distance, as if they were extremely wary of Lu Ping's 2 slashes. At this time, Lu Ping raised his voice and said, "Elders Mulwan, would you please show yourself?" Mulwan? Green Fox was taken aback, and even Samling and Debeo were surprised. 2 middle-aged men dressed in green walked out slowly from behind a slope. The 2 of them, who had originally looked exceptionally tall and dignified, had 2 slashes on their chests and abdomen, and they looked extremely pathetic. The 2 of them looked at Lu Ping and the others with doubtful expressions, but they were also unusually cautious. The one on the left asked slowly, "You're not disciples of the 9 Shin Tower. Who are you?" Lu Ping did not answer directly, but asked, "Are the 2 of you from the Mulwan tribe that has lived here for generations?" The 2 Mulwan looked at each other, and the one on the right was obviously impatient. He asked loudly, "Who are you? Tell us quickly, or we'll send out a warning and gather the 9 Shin Tower's disciples to surround and kill you." At this time, Lu Ping finally calmed down. He chuckled and said, "I believe the 2 of you have already confirmed who we are. Moreover, if the 2 of you wanted to gather the 9 Shin Tower's disciples, I'm afraid you would have done so long ago. Why wait until now?" The 2 Mulwan kept their mouths shut and only stood in the distance, facing off against Lu Ping and the others. They did not send out any warning or gather the 9 Shin Tower's disciples. Lu Ping seemed to have expected this, and he directly ignored the 2 Mulwan. He beckoned to the one behind him and said, "Debeo, this should be the 9 Shin Tower's grotto heaven that specializes in cultivating spirit herbs. Hurry up and pick the valuable, important, and mature ones. Also, look for all the spirit herbs recorded in the 2 pill recipes you saw earlier. Remember, do not stray more than 30 li from me." Debao chuckled and said, "There are truly too many treasures here. I, Debao, have been waiting for a long time." As he finished speaking, a yellow cloud of dust rose from his feet. Debeo had already used the earth evasion technique and disappeared. Chapter 1203. It was obvious that this was a grotto heaven in the 9 Profound Tower that was specially used to cultivate spiritual herbs. The terrain inside the grotto heaven was uneven, but it was filled with spiritual herb gardens. All kinds of spiritual herbs grew in different types, and they grew in different areas. Occasionally, there were some medicinal trees that formed a lush forest. The rich spiritual qi nourished all the life in the grotto heaven. Lu Ping felt as if he could feel the vigorous vitality in the grotto heaven even as he breathed. Spirit-seeking mouse? The wood phoenix cultivator on the right looked in the direction that Debeo had disappeared in bewilderment. It was unknown whether he was asking Lu Ping, the pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator on the left, or perhaps he was muttering to himself. Lu Ping seemed to know that Debeo had not gone far. He said loudly, "Be careful. Don't make it too obvious. Only take what's useful. Don't give yourself away too much." The 2 wood phoenixes looked at each other. It was obvious that these people were treating them as nothing. Moreover, it seemed like they were planning to make a small, long-term investment. Qinghu also looked at Lu Ping in surprise. "Are you planning to come again in the future?" Lu Ping looked in the direction of the 2 wood phoenixes and said, "Whether or not I can come again depends on these 2 seniors." When Qinghu looked over, the 2 wood phoenixes were already whispering to each other. She couldn't tell what they were discussing. Meanwhile, Lu Ping once again summoned the amethyst queen bee from the House of Gold. He ordered her to lead her subjects into the grotto heaven in a grandiose manner. Similarly, according to Lu Ping's orders, the amethyst bees would not leave the 30-kilometer radius that Lu Ping's divine sense could cover. Amethyst bees. The 2 wood phoenixes didn't even have time to discuss. They stared dumbfoundedly at the 3,000 amethyst bees charging into the sea of spiritual herbs under the amethyst queen bee's guidance. However, in just a short while, the 2 of them gasped again as they watched the 3 14- or 15-year-old children walking into the cave. One of them exclaimed in a low voice, "Green sea snake." The other person muttered to himself, "Wind snake, water snake, and ice snake. The descendants of the 3 strongest tribes of the green sea snake." Another 2 streaks of light descended from the sky. They were 2 attractive middle-aged women, both of them at the early Dharma stage. It was obvious that they had come to meet up with the two Wood Phoenix adepts because they had discovered the abnormality of this place. However, just like the two Wood Phoenix adepts, these two women did not attack Lu Ping and Green Fox. Green Fox was a little uneasy as she said, "What's going on?" If these four were to join forces against us, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand in a short period of time. But they're all from the Wood Phoenix tribe. Once they warn us, we'll be like turtles in a jar. Lu Ping smiled faintly. If these people really wanted to hand us over to the Nine Mystical Tower, they would have warned the Nine Mystical Tower the moment we entered this cave. In fact, they didn't do anything at all. But when you came in just now, they attacked. Lu Ping nodded and said, "The two Wood Phoenixes indeed have strong training, but their abilities may not be that high. Even if you were to attack, those two might not be able to defeat you even if they joined forces." Green Fox was in disbelief. How is that possible? The Wood Phoenix tribe is a top-level demon clan, and they are the direct descendants of the Luan Taoist, who is as famous as the Fire Phoenix. With their level of training, they might not be weaker than me among the same level of practitioners. Lu Ping laughed loudly. How many Wood Phoenixes are left of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the world of practitioners? I'm afraid the only ones left are the Wood Phoenix slaves that are raised in the caves of the various holy lands to cultivate spirit herbs. They are sacrificed at specific times to help the practitioners of the holy lands break through the bottleneck of their training. How strong do you think these Wood Phoenix slaves are? In order to control these demon slaves, why would the holy lands allow them to grow freely? Green Fox naturally understood the logic behind this, but she still asked, no matter what, the Wood Luan tribe is one of the most powerful tribes among the monster race. They have inherited their bloodline and memories, and this grotto heaven is rich in spirit chi and spirit herbs. It seems like the Nine Mystical Tower isn't controlling them, but imprisoning them at most. Lu Ping laughed. You don't know this, but although these top-level demons have inherited their bloodlines and memories, these things can only support their training before they reach the core forging stage. If they want to reach the Dharma stage and still maintain their advantage as a top-level demon clan, then they have to stay in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe for a long time. Otherwise, even if they reach the Dharma stage, without the secret techniques and cultivation methods of the Wood Phoenix tribe, they can only gradually become mediocre. Furthermore, they have been imprisoned here their entire lives and have never had any experience in fighting with others. Just now, when the two of them fought, they completely relied on their cultivation to win. How strong do you think they are? The conversation between Lu Ping and Green Fox was not deliberately hidden, so the four Wood Phoenix cultivators heard it clearly. When Lu Ping finished speaking, the pale-faced Wood Phoenix cultivator could not help but ask, "Who are you? How do you know so many secrets of the Wood Phoenix tribe?" Lu Ping smiled. In the end, you can't hold it in any longer. Naturally, we came in from outside the Nine Mystical Tower. As for what method we used to break through the protective array of the Nine Mystical Tower and enter, I believe that only the Wood Phoenix seniors know. The face of the Wood Phoenix cultivator with the silk scarf on his head immediately changed. He snorted coldly and said, "What are you talking about? We don't understand what you mean." Lu Ping did not comment on this person's denial. Instead, he answered the question of the Wood Phoenix cultivator, saying, "Although the Wood Phoenix tribe is on the verge of extinction, it is not extinct. I once had a good friend of the Wood Phoenix tribe, and he is currently cultivating in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the East Sea, so he knows a lot about your clan." Impossible. Is that true? The silk scarf Wood Phoenix and the pale-faced Wood Phoenix almost blurted out at the same time. The two of them looked at each other, both seeing shock and hope in the other's eyes. In the end, it was the silk scarf Wood Phoenix who said with a slight tremble, "The Wood Phoenix tribe of the cultivation world really did not go extinct?" Lu Ping shrugged and said, "No, but I'm afraid it won't be long. Anyway, I've only seen one Wood Luan before. I've never heard any news about the Wood Luan clan in the cultivation world for the past few hundred years. Of course, there are rumors that there are ancient spirit birds and beasts like you in the sacred land. But I'm afraid your identities are a bit awkward, so no one will treat you as part of the Wood Luan clan." Lu Ping's words were extremely straightforward. The silk scarf cultivator's face showed anger, and the pale-faced wood phoenix became even paler. The two female wood phoenix cultivators also looked at Lu Ping with unsightly expressions, but there was also a hint of loneliness. Qinghu, on the other hand, became even more nervous, afraid that the wood phoenix would be angered by Lu Ping's sharp words and send a warning to the Nine Mystical Tower. Even though she still felt puzzled that the wood phoenix had not sent a warning to the Nine Mystical Tower, this was still what she hoped for. However, when she thought about infiltrating the inheritance cave of the Nine Mystical Tower, she felt an inexplicable excitement in her heart. Fellows, if you have anything to say, just say it. Looks like this sky grotto is a place specially used by Nine Profound Tower to grow spiritual herbs. You fellows must be the spiritual plant farmers here, right? However, given how important this place is, it is impossible for Nine Profound Tower to not send some cultivators to check on it frequently. In Qinghu's eyes, Lu Ping's words were as rude as possible, but the four-aspect azure lawn became calmer and calmer after hearing Lu Ping's words. It was truly strange. You came in through the passage opened by the thieving heaven, Laozu? The four of them whispered to each other again. This time, it was one of the two female wood phoenix cultivators who spoke. Lu Ping's expression was one of certainty. I didn't think that you would still be waiting after 10,000 years. It seems that the thieving heaven Laozu really did have some secret agreement with you when he entered this place. For you to be willing to keep this secret for almost 10,000 years, it must be because the thieving heaven Laozu promised to help you escape from the bondage of monster slaves. The female wood phoenix cultivator said fiercely, who would be willing to be a monster slave from birth? In every generation, other than leaving behind a few seeds, the rest of the clansmen would disappear. Needless to say, we know that they were killed by the Nine Mystical Tower and used to grow rare herbs to increase their cultivation. The other female wood phoenix cultivator thought of something and asked in surprise, You didn't know about this at all? Lu Ping smiled. That's right, but now I can roughly guess what is going on. The pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator asked, Then what's the deal with that spirit-seeking mouse of yours? Lu Ping said calmly, He is my follower and also my brother. Follower? Is there still such an existence in the cultivation world? You actually did not place restrictions on their divine senses? The silk turban wood phoenix was somewhat surprised and emotional. The other wood phoenix's expressions changed. Even the green fox had a strange expression. Lu Ping found it funny. After placing restrictions on them, they can only be monster slaves and spirit pets like you. How can they be followers? How can they be brothers? Lu Ping did not care about what the wood phoenixes were thinking, he said directly. Back then, thieving heaven Laozu died from his injuries after leaving this grotto heaven. He naturally could not return to save you, and he also could not leave behind his last words to save you. Lu Ping did not care about their expressions, he continued. And if I am not wrong, the fatal injuries on thieving heaven Laozu's body were likely caused by your ancestor, right? Rather than saying that thieving heaven Laozu agreed to save you, it is more accurate to say that he was forced to do so. Chapter 1204. More than 9,000 years ago, the first time thieving Laozu stepped into the longevity grotto heaven, he was discovered by the wood Luan demon slaves at that time. It was also at the place where Lu Ping and the rest appeared. The two mid-Dharma stage wood Luan demon slaves joined forces and heavily injured Laozu, who had just entered. Having lost the inheritance of the wood phoenix clan after advancing to the Dharma stage, the strength of the demon slaves could only be considered mediocre among practitioners of the same level, but it was still not something that the thieving sky patriarch could withstand. Even though he was also a mid-Dharma adept, to be able to push his cultivation to the mid-Dharma stage, it was unknown how many tricks he had used and how many coincidences he had encountered. With his cultivation and strength, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. So how could he withstand the attack of two wood phoenix demon slaves? The heavily injured and captured thieving Laozu had no choice but to agree to the wood Luan race's many conditions, the most important of which was that he would enter the longevity grotto heaven in the future and bring the wood Luan race's descendants out of the grotto heaven, so that they would not be enslaved by the Nine Xian Tower. For this, The Wood Luan demon slaves in the Grotto Heaven secretly helped thieving Lao Tzu to steal a large number of rare herbs from the Longevity Grotto Heaven before letting him go. Of course, even if the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven did not know the ways of the world, they still had to guard against thieving Lao Tzu going back on his word after leaving the Grotto Heaven. Thus, they had a backup plan, so that thieving Lao Tzu would not be able to enter the Grotto Heaven again. Back then, when thieving Lao Tzu entered the Longevity Grotto Heaven, he was captured by the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves. However, at that time, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not have any eggs that had not hatched yet, so they could not let thieving Lao Tzu take them away. And after the Wood Luan race was born, they would be turned into demon slaves by the 9 Xian Towers' divine will. Even if they were not in the Longevity Grotto Heaven, their life and death were at the mercy of the 9 Xian Tower. With no other choice, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slave had no choice but to let thieving Heaven Lao Tzu leave and agreed to enter the Grotto Heaven again to take the Wood Luan egg and raise it in the cultivation world. However, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not expect that the injuries they had inflicted on thieving Lao Tzu, which were not considered serious, would be fatal. Thieving Heaven Lao Tzu only had the cultivation of the mid-Dharma stage, but in reality, he really could not take a beating. The plan of the Wood Luan demon slaves immediately came to nothing. This wait lasted for nearly 10,000 years. That year, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves had already become the meal of some powerful person in the 9 Xian Tower, while the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven secretly passed down the information that there was a flaw in the Grotto Heaven left behind by thieving Heaven Lao Tzu, hoping that someone from the outside could use this flaw to reopen the passage to the outside world. For this reason, every generation of Wood Luan demon slaves had been secretly preparing for this. Because thieving Heaven Lao Tzu had entered the Grotto Heaven from here, the Wood Luan demon race built their nest in a forest not far from here. With regards to this request of the Wood Luan race, Lu Ping naturally would not refuse. Since he was already here, taking away some of the Wood Luan's descendants was just a matter of convenience. Moreover, this matter would only benefit Lu Ping. The sky above the forest was connected to form a huge nest. When Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived, the two discovered that this was actually a small colony of Wood Luan. Apart from the 4 Dharma stage Wood Luan demon slaves, there were also 3 pairs of Wood Luan demon slaves. 2 pairs were at the core forging stage, while the other pair was only at the blood condensation stage. We have already gathered all of our tribe members. There are 10 of them in total, and they are all here now. However, we did not inform them of your arrival, so your followers will not meet them in the Grotto Heaven. The one who spoke was the Wood Luan cultivator with a silk scarf on his head. This person was Luan Xiao, and one of the 2 female Dharma adepts who came after him was his path companion, while the other was the path companion of the pale-faced cultivator. Lu Ping and Green Fox followed the 4 Dharma adepts of the Wood Luan race to the Grotto Heaven. They saw the pale-faced Wood Luan Qing raise his hand and slap an inconspicuous little tree near the nest. This little tree, which would at least be a top-grade spiritual material when it was fully grown, was instantly broken. However, the center of the broken little tree was hollow, and 2 snow-white eggs rolled out of it. Luan Qing carefully held the 2 snow-white eggs in his hands and caressed them for a while before handing the eggs over to Lu Ping under the dejected expression of his path companion. He said, "These are the descendants of my wife and I ever since our union. We have only left 5 descendants. Other than these 2 who have been hiding in secret, of the remaining 3, 2 have hatched into adults, a boy and a girl. Both are now at the core forging stage. The girl was brought to the Wuxing school by the 9 mystical tower in exchange for a girl of the same cultivation level as the path companion of the boy. As for the other egg, it was taken away by the 9 mystical tower before it hatched. It is highly likely that it has already become someone's stomach." At this point, Luan Qing's path companion's voice was slightly choked as she said, "Fortunately, the Wood Luan race has a secret technique that allows us to preserve these eggs for almost 100 years. Otherwise, if you had come 10 years later, my 2 children would have died in the eggs before they hatched." Lu Ping received the 2 eggs and carefully placed them into the House of Gold. Immediately after, Luan Xiao took out another egg from the heart of another tree and handed it over to Lu Ping. Luan Xiao had also given birth to 5 eggs with his path companion. 3 of them hatched, 2 were male, and 1 was female. Of the 2 sons, 1 was exchanged for a path companion from the Purple Sun Palace, while the other had his golden core dug out by the 9 mystical tower after he advanced to the core forging stage. As for the remaining 2 eggs, one of them had died due to the passage of time. Only this one was still alive. Soon after, Luan Xiao took out another egg from the roots of another tree and said, "This is fellow Taoist Luan Xiao's descendant." Both husband and wife were taken away by the 9 mystical towers Zhu Zhuan a few decades ago. I believe they were used to nourish her and help her break through to the pure Yang realm. I hope that you can take this egg with you and leave behind a descendant for fellow Taoist Luan Xiao. This wasn't the end of it. Luan Qing also took out another 2 eggs from an unknown place. These 2 eggs looked much fresher than the previous 4. They should have been born not too long ago. Sure enough, Luan Qing said, "These 2 eggs are the descendants of fellow Taoist Luan Xiao and I. I'll have to trouble you to take them with you." When Luan Qing found these 2 eggs, Lu Ping had already noticed that there were 2 more eggs together with these 2 eggs. However, Luan Qing didn't take them out. Lu Ping could guess that they were still somewhat worried about him. They were afraid that their descendants would enter the tiger's den right after leaving the wolf's den. Therefore, they didn't dare to hand over all of their descendants to Lu Ping. However, Luan Qing and Luan Xiao's descendants had been eggs for too long. They couldn't keep them, so they had no choice but to hand them over to Lu Ping. However, they still kept some of their descendants. However, Lu Ping still asked, "Since fellow Taoist trusts me so much, aren't you afraid that I'll turn your descendants into demon slaves in the future?" Luan Xiao smiled bitterly. "There are demon slaves on both sides. How bad can it be? Handing them over to fellow Taoist can be considered a ray of hope. I can only hope that fellow Taoist compassion will allow the Wood Luan clan to continue to exist in the cultivation world." Lu Ping put away the 5 Wood Luan eggs and said, "I'll do my best." The 9 Profound Tower clearly didn't only have the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven to cultivate spiritual herbs. However, without a doubt, the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven was the 9 Profound Towers' most important place for cultivating spiritual herbs. Naturally, there were 9 Profound Towers cultivators stationed within the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and the fact that the Heaven Grotto Heaven was incomparably vast, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the help of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven remained undetected. The 9 Profound Tower had sent cultivators to guard the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and the incomparably vast Heaven Grotto Heaven, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the assistance of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven remained undetected. Not to mention, this was just one of the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. During these 3 days, Lu Ping's harvest could be described as a fruitful journey. Putting aside the fact that the 3,000 amethyst bee soldiers had brought Lu Ping several jars of amethyst bee honey, Zilan would have to spend a long time to brew the amethyst royal jelly. Just the amount of rare herbs that Debao had brought back was enough to make Lu Ping overjoyed. In order to not leave behind too obvious a trail, Debao had to pick and choose what he wanted. If the one she higher sky had appeared, Lu Ping would not have been able to finish using it even after a few hundred years. Of course, it was impossible for him to collect so many spiritual herbs in the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven in just 3 days. Other than this, what was even more precious was the 2 pill recipes that he had obtained from Lao Tzu, the Thieving Heaven, the Thunder Calamity Pill, and the Grade 6 Transcendence Pill. All the rare herbs that were recorded in the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven were collected by Debao. Of course, there were some rare herbs that Lu Ping did not recognize, or that had already gone extinct in the cultivation world. Debao had also found many of them, allowing Lu Ping and Zhenling to have a complete variety of spiritual herbs in their Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven garden. Lu Ping had also found a few rare tea trees in the longevity heaven. He had asked him to take their seeds and branches to see if they could be planted in the golden house. The 3 days that Lu Ping had agreed on with Lu Qiner and the others had arrived. Before Lu Ping left the longevity heaven grotto heaven, Luan Qing and Luan Xiu had surprised Lu Ping again. This is the 7-aperture pear and immortal root? Lu Ping looked at the items in their hands. Even though he was surprised, he was very excited. These were all treasures that could be used to strengthen the physical body. Furthermore, this 7-aperture pear was clearly ripe. If he could find the 7-aperture pear's seeds in the fruit, wouldn't he be able to use them to nurture the 7-aperture pear tree? He could also try to nurture the immortal root. In terms of preciousness, these 2 items were not inferior to the azure wood pure jade fruit that Lu Ping had once obtained. These are the 2 spiritual items that we have been secretly collecting all these years. Today, we will give them to you. Lu Ping took the 2 items and said with a serious expression, "Rest assured, the Wood Luan race will definitely not go extinct." Chapter 1205. Lu Ping did not expect to receive such a pleasant surprise before leaving the longevity sky grotto. The 7-aperture pear and immortal root were rare treasures in the cultivation world that could significantly strengthen a cultivator's physical body. While these 2 treasures could not be compared to the white jade lotus root and bloody skeleton flower in Lu Ping's possession, they were comparable to the verdant wood pure jade fruit. Furthermore, Lu Ping had discovered that the 7-aperture pear was sufficiently ripe. There might even be a 7-aperture pear tree seed inside. Moreover, the immortal root was also a hidden source of vitality. Perhaps it could take root again. If that was the case, it would truly be a blessing from the heavens. The longevity sky grotto was vast. In just 3 days, Lu Ping had led Debao, the amethyst wasps, Samling, and the rest through the areas that might be guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators under the guidance of the Wood Luan. Furthermore, they had to carefully identify the types and ages of the spiritual herbs. As a result, they had only covered a third of the longevity sky grotto. However, they had already reaped such a harvest in a third of the longevity sky grotto. If they were to search through the entire winter, especially those areas guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators, who knew what kind of harvest they would reap? When Lu Ping and the rest entered the longevity sky grotto, Lu Ping turned to Luan Qing, who had rushed over to send them off. "I am deeply grateful for fellow Taoists' help. However, although we have been cautious, quite a number of spiritual herbs have disappeared during the winter. Not to mention, some of them are extremely valuable. If the 9 mystical tower investigates, I fear that fellow Taoists will not be able to escape responsibility." Luan Qing did not mind at all. She smiled. "So what? We will die either way. None of us would Luan Yao slaves, raised in the longevity sky grotto, have a good ending. The 9 mystical tower will not waste the value of a single Wood Luan. It is only a matter of time before we die." Seeing the guilty expressions on Lu Ping's and the rest's faces, Luan Qing smiled and said, "Of course, we will do our best to save ourselves. However, at the very most, we can only say that we don't know anything. If the 9 mystical tower suspects you, we will need you to extricate yourself from this matter." Lu Ping nodded and turned to Azure Fox. "Let's begin." Qinghua swung the heaven-stealing divine axe forward and tore a rift in the dimension. Lu Ping did the same thing, pulling on the sides of the rift and tearing it open. Then, the few of them rushed out of the rift and disappeared. Luan Qing was left staring blankly at the spatial crack closing before her, muttering, "I hope that the Wood Luan clan still has a chance." Outside 9 Profound Mountain, a stream of light, grand and majestic, descended upon the mountain, giving off an atmosphere that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The stream of light retracted to reveal a tall, bearded cultivator. Step by step, he walked towards the center of the mountain. The Tiani Pavilion Master and San, and Chang Sankai Chang, smiled. "Qing, brother," the other said with a cheeky smile. "Brother Wei is here." This unkempt cultivator was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 mystical tower, the brother in charge of the Yuan Pavilion, Wei Zhen. He was usually called Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan looked at the two of them and said in a low and hoarse voice, "What's wrong? You lost them?" Chang Sankai shrugged his shoulders and made an innocent expression, while the yin and yang brothel master revealed an ashamed expression and said, "Yes, we fell into their trap. They seem to have entered the thieving heaven inheritance for 3 days." Wei Yuan nodded. 3 days is not a long time. The treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance are hard to find. Usually, it takes decades to find all the treasures inside. Some greedy people even stay inside for a year or two. Regardless of who entered, it seems that Azure Fox and Lu Tianping did not enter. Are there any traces of them now? The Tiani Pavilion Master shook his head. These people are very secretive. We have not been able to find them. Wei Yuan said, "That is to be expected. But once the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance appear, Lu Tianping and Azure Fox will definitely come to their aid. At that time, we will not be able to let them escape again." The Tiani Pavilion Master said, "Don't worry, brother. This time, we have made even more thorough arrangements. Lu Tianping and the rest will not be able to escape." Wei Zhen glanced at the Tiani Pavilion Master and said, "Don't speak too early. I remember you saying that Lu Tianping and the rest will be captured before they can enter the thieving heaven inheritance, but what about now?" The Tiani Pavilion Master's face turned red. Who would have thought that the formation that fifth junior brother comprehended from the underworld void formation could be seen through by Lu Tianping? Wei Zhen grunted coldly and said that Lu Tianping probably possesses a miraculous eye technique, and it's very likely that it's one of the 3 branches of the Tripure True Pupils. Moreover, it's very likely that he's mastered it, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be able to see through old Fifth's formation. Wei Zhen explained, then asked Chang Sankai, "You have fought with that Lu Tianping before. How do you think his strength compares to mine?" Chang Sankai became more serious at this moment. He spat out the small stick in his mouth and thought for a while before saying, "From the situation at that time, he is only slightly stronger than me, but he must have hidden his strength at that time. As for him being able to defeat the 4th elder of the Tenma people, although it seems powerful, don't forget that it was on the Qingming River. This person is a cultivator from overseas, and he cultivates a water attribute cultivation method. His sword ability is like a surging wave or a surging flood, but his cultivation base is so dense that it makes one's hair stand on end. That was because he had the geographical advantage, so in my opinion, his true strength is about the same as Elder Tianma." Wei Zhen nodded. Most cultivators from overseas cultivate a water attribute cultivation method. Elder Tianma was indeed careless when he fought with Lu Tianping on the Qingming River. If he was facing a cultivator of the same level, I believe that Elder Tianma would not have been so unwise. At this moment, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower hurriedly interrupted. "That is to say that Lu Tianping's strength is at most equal to eldest senior brother's? Eldest senior brother has also fought with many great cultivators before, and those people were unable to do anything to eldest senior brother." Wei Zhen pondered. "In that case, this person's strength should be about the same as mine?" The master of the Yin and Yang Tower continued. "If the strength is about the same, then it depends on the treasures in one's hands. Eldest senior brother has a second tribulation spirit treasure bestowed by the seniors of the sect, so this person will definitely lose to eldest senior brother." Chang Sankai curled his lips and said that Lu Tianping possesses several great innate and supreme divine abilities. If eldest senior brother is to face this person, you should be careful. The master of the Yin and Yang Tower said unhappily, "Third brother, why do you always side with an outsider? Don't forget that eldest senior brother has already condensed 2 supreme divine abilities, and he also has 2 to 3 great innate divine abilities. If he adds on the power of the second tribulation spirit treasure, it is not an exaggeration to say that no 3rd-generation cultivators in the entire cultivation world will be a match for him." Chang Sankai smacked his lips, and in the end, he simply kept the small wooden stick that he had just spat out in his mouth. In the end, he simply did not say anything. But this disgusted the master of the Yin and Yang Tower who was watching at the side. However, he did not open his mouth to say anything. Obviously, although they hated this bad habit of the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, they were already used to it. At this moment, it was the master of the first origin tower who took over and continued. This Lu Tianping had a nickname when he was in the North Sea. He was called Treasure Boy. This means that this person always has all kinds of treasures and trump cards on him, making it impossible for others to guard against him. It is hard to guarantee that this person does not have similar treasures on him. In short, this person is definitely a formidable opponent. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Lu Ping and the others did not leave immediately. DeBeo once again did a carpet search in this inheritance. Everyone had no choice but to stay and wait for him. At this moment, Lu Ping was not particularly anxious. He simply began to sort out the gains from the Longevity Grotto Heaven in the secret room. At the same time, he also began to refine the magic treasure pill furnace Thieving Heaven cauldron that had condensed a treasure restriction. As for the 5 with Luan eggs, Lu Ping had already instructed Qing Hu to conceal this matter. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, he recalled Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua back to the Golden House. There was a forest in the Golden House, but Lu Qiner still built her nest on top of the spirit demon peach tree. However, at this time, there were 5 with Luan eggs in Lu Qiner's nest. Seeing Lu Qiner's frown, Lu Taohua gloated, "Qiner, looks like you really should get married. You haven't even become Luan Yu's Dao companion, but Big Brother has already given you the task of hatching the wood Luan eggs. If Luan Yu finds out about this in the future, what will he think?" Lu Qiner fiercely glared at Lu Taohua. "Damned girl, you dare to talk nonsense. See if I don't tear your mouth apart." Lu Taohua giggled. "Don't worry, Big Brother will not talk nonsense. Moreover, if you really hatch a wood Luan bird, Luan Yu will be overjoyed. I believe that Luan Yu does not want the wood Luan race to be extinct more than anyone else, right?" Lu Qiner said, "This grandaunt is doing her best for the wood Luan race. I hope these 5 wood Luan eggs can hatch smoothly." Lu Qiner saw Lu Taohua holding many bottles and jars as she walked around her main body. She asked, "What are you doing?" Lu Taohua said, "These are the seeds of rare herbs that Big Brother brought out from Longevity Grotto Heaven. He hopes that they can be nurtured in the Golden House, so he asked me to take care of them." Lu Qiner smiled. In terms of nurturing spirit herbs, even the wood Luan race might not be as good as Sister Peach Blossom. Inside Thieving Heaven's inheritance, DeBeo laughed like a madman. "Ha ha ha ha, found it, I knew it. Ancestor Thieving Heaven's dream was to raise the aptitude of the spirit-seeking mice. How could he not leave behind his inheritance before his death?" Lu Ping was also very interested in Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance. He quickly asked DeBeo for this beast skin scroll that was sealed by layers of spirit-sealing talismans. Weighing the beast skin scroll in his hand, Lu Ping exclaimed, "The beast skin of a pure young beastkin cultivator. This is a big deal." A beast skin scroll that was made from the fur of a pure young beastkin cultivator's main body was naturally not a small matter. Lu Ping carefully opened the beast skin scroll. His eyes flickered with a faint light as he carefully read the contents. His expression became increasingly strange, making DeBeo feel increasingly uneasy. Chapter 1206. "Boss, what is it?" Lu Ping threw the beast skin scroll to DeBeo. "See for yourself. Supreme divine ability. Sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. 3 basic divine abilities. Flower grafting wood, palace shifting feather, stealing beam, and swapping pillar." DeBeo covered the beast skin scroll. His small eyes glanced to the left, then to the right, only to find that everyone was trying hard to hold in their laughter. Only then did he realize that he was reading the contents of the beast skin scroll in a soft voice. Everyone was attracted by his shout of finding Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance, so they naturally heard everything he said. DeBeo said angrily, Okay, laugh if you want to. Why do you have to hold it in so hard?" Everyone burst into laughter. Normally speaking, great divine abilities or supreme divine abilities were mostly offensive and defensive, but there were also many unorthodox divine abilities with all kinds of wonderful methods. Strictly speaking, even Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils was considered one of the unorthodox divine abilities. And Debao's supreme divine ability inheritance cultivation method was even more peculiar. It could be said to be the most unorthodox of unorthodox methods. From the beginning to the end, this cultivation method inheritance did not aim to attack and kill enemies, but to teach people how to dodge, how to escape, how to hide, how to break formations, how to identify treasures, how to avoid tracking, in short, how to steal without anyone noticing. And among all these divine ability inheritances, the most profound was how to break formations. Back then, the reason why Thieving Heaven Laozu refined the Thieving Heaven Divine Axe was to have some achievements on the path of breaking formations. There was no formation in the world that could not be broken. It only depended on the time needed to break the formation, the strength of one's strength, and the clumsiness of the method. Sky-stealing, sun-shifting art relied on the ingenuity and concealment of the formation, and the price to pay was mainly time. In order to covet the rare herbs in Longevity Grotto Heaven, Thieving Heaven Laozu spent a total of 50 years managing this inheritance, and finally avoided 9 profound towers' eyes and ears, secretly opening a gap in 9 profound towers' formation. But in the end, man proposes, heaven disposes. Thieving Heaven Laozu actually died in the hands of Longevity Grotto Heavens with Luan Fei race. All of his plans failed. With Debao's current cultivation level, he could barely cultivate the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. However, he could only focus on the basic divine powers at most. It wasn't easy to master all of them. Right now, I'm afraid that the 9 Profound Tower has already set up an inescapable net outside the 9 Profound Mountain. I'm afraid that once we reveal ourselves, we'll be surrounded and attacked by the entire 9 Profound Tower. Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived at the end of the tunnel. This was the exit of the Thieving Heaven relic. Then what should we do? Actually, it is not impossible to force our way out. 9 Mystical Tower does not know that all of us have entered the Thieving Heaven inheritance. There should be a group of people outside 9 Mystical Mountain guarding against the people who entered the Thieving Heaven inheritance. We can catch them off guard. Lu Ping shook his head slightly and said, "The 9 Mystical Tower isn't a fool. They've already fallen for our trap once. So how could they possibly give us another chance? We're alone, and this is the 9 Mystical Towers territory. No matter what, we don't have the upper hand." Green Fox said, "Then what should we do? Since the 9 Profound Tower has already confirmed that the Thieving Heaven relic is in the 9 Profound Mountain, they will find it sooner or later." Lu Ping smiled and said, "It is easy for us to leave this place, and the 9 Profound Tower cannot surround us. However, I am worried that the 9 Profound Towers cultivators will chase after us after we leave. With the 9 Profound Towers' influence in the Central Plains, it is not an exaggeration to say that there is no place for us to hide in the Central Plains." "Easy?" Green Fox was slightly surprised and said, "As long as we can avoid their attacks, how will they know that we have entered the Thieving Heaven relic? We were clearly chased out of the 9 Profound Mountain by them. I am afraid that they will still be guarding the 9 Profound Mountain, waiting for the person who entered the Thieving Heaven relic to come out." Lu Ping smiled and said, "That is true, but it is inevitable that the 9 Profound Towers people will chase after us." Outside the 9 Mysterious Mountain, Chang Sankai was already so bored that he was about to fall asleep. The Yin Yang Pavilion Master looked at the 5-element Pavilion Master beside him and said, "Over 10 days have already passed. 5th Junior Brother, is there still no activity in the 9 Mysterious Mountain? Could it be that they have already left?" The 5 Elements Pavilion Master's face turned stiff. From the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master's words, it was obvious that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master suspected that the formation he had set up in the 9 Profound Mountain had already been avoided. Thus, he said with dissatisfaction, "The Thieving Heaven Laozu is the best at hiding things. Perhaps the person who entered the relic is still looking for something inside." The Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was embarrassed, but after thinking about it, he felt that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was right. Thus, he asked the First Origin Pavilion Master, "Wei Jian, eldest senior brother, in my opinion, the sect should just send 1 or 2 great cultivators to guard this place. With our cooperation, when the time comes, Lu Tianping and the others will be easily captured." "Why do we need to waste time here? Wei Jin glanced at him and said, "In the beginning, when we set up the ambush on the Nine Profound Mountain, you were the one who was the most proactive. Now, you are the one who has the least confidence. If the thieving heaven Laozu is going to alarm the great cultivators of our sect just because of one Lu Tianping, then where do we hide our faces?" The yin and yang pavilion master chuckled. Then, Chang Sankai, who was beside him, said casually, "In the end, the thieving heavens relic is just not worth the attention of the sect. Although the thieving heaven Laozu was quite famous in the past, he was after all only a mid-dharma adept. He has stolen many things, but from the treasures that have been unearthed from the thieving heavens relic, none of them are able to tempt the old demons of the sect. It's just that there are a lot of them. Naturally, they are not worth the attention of our dignified Holy Land sections." Chang Sansai's words were reasonable, but coupled with his sloppy demeanor, when these words were heard by others, it sounded like he was mocking and ridiculing their own sect. Fortunately, the people in the Nine Profound Tower seemed to be used to it. At this moment, the yin and yang pavilion master thought of something and said, "That year, the thieving heaven Laozu really entered one of the caves of our sect. If these people found the traces left behind by the thieving heaven Laozu and sneaked into our cave again, what should we do?" Don't worry, that year, the thieving heaven Laozu only entered the longevity cave after breaking through our sect's protective formation. Our sect has already learned its lesson, and not only did we strengthen the protective formation, every 50 years, the protective formation will be activated again and become unrecognizable. If we want to break through the formation, we will have to start all over again, Wei Jin said solemnly. But then again, recently, the whereabouts of the Laozu in our sect seem to be a little uncertain. Could it be that something big is going to happen? Chang Sankai spat out the wooden stick in his mouth and asked Wei Jin, "Boss, you should know something here, right?" Wei Jin chuckled and said, "Other than Mara, what else could it be?" Previously, the magic cloud city outside the Endless Mountains was destroyed by the Peacock royalty and Mara's army. Then, it was occupied by the demon clan of the Endless Mountains. How could the Lingyun Valley suffer such a big loss? Both sides fought openly and secretly for the magic cloud city, but unexpectedly, Mara's army took advantage of it. It was said that in a battle, both the human and demon clans lost more than 10 Dharma adepts under the siege of Mara, including 2 late Dharma adepts. In order to annihilate this Mara army, both sides had to temporarily put aside the fight for Magic Cloud City. The six-winged Golden Cicada clan and Skyward Pavilion of the Endless Mountains joined forces with the other factions and finally defeated this Mara army. At the same time, both sides paid a huge price. After this battle, the calamity of Mara had gradually begun to spread deep into the heart of Middle-earth. The Nine Shin Tower could be said to be ready for battle. The great adepts in the sect were constantly sent out to patrol the territories controlled by the Nine Shin Tower, and at the same time, they gathered all the factions around the Nine Shin Tower to prepare for the upcoming calamity of Mara. How could they have the energy to put so much attention on the thieving heaven's inheritance? Furthermore, the first, second, third, and fifth ranked direct disciples of the Nine Shin Tower were currently gathered at Nine Shin Mountain. If they still could not take down the thieving heaven's inheritance, the Nine Shin Tower would have nothing else to say. Stealing the sky and switching the sun. Could this be what it means to steal the sky and switch the sun? Although the entrance to this treasure trove is within the Nine Shin Mountain, the truth is that the treasure itself is attached to the Nine Shin Mountain's sect-protecting formation. No matter how the formation operates, the treasure will not leave the formation. Hence, we will always be able to find the longevity paradise in this treasure trove. Thieving Heaven Laozu truly lives up to his reputation as an extraordinary person. The Nine Shin Tower naturally has no lack of formation masters, but they never discovered that the sect-protecting formation has already been tampered with. This is truly a marvelous skill, worthy of the name Thieving Heaven. Lu Ping and Qing, who discussed the stealing the sun and stealing art on the beast skin scroll while corroborating with the Thieving Heaven's inheritance. From time to time, they would click their tongues in wonder. And the true inheritor of this divine ability was currently opening a cave on a wall that had been opened, and this cave was a branch of a large spirit stone vein. Although the Nine Xian Tower would change the operation method of their sect-protecting formation every 50 years, they never thought that the thieving heaven's inheritance would be attached to the sect-protecting formation in an unimaginable way and always be connected to the longevity grotto heaven. And the most recent operation of the formation had placed the longevity grotto heaven and a large spirit stone vein together. And Lu Ping and the rest, who were about to leave, were once again stopped by Debao. He wanted to steal the spirit stones in this spirit stone vein. Of course, he only had his eyes on top-grade spirit stones. As long as the Nine Xian Tower could not find this place, Lu Ping was naturally not in a hurry. Furthermore, stealing the spirit stone vein had become a technical job in Debao's eyes. How could the Nine Xian Tower not discover that this spirit stone vein had never been stolen before? Stealing the sun and stealing art. This was the opportunity for Debao to immediately start practicing this divine ability. Chapter 1207. How could he not leave any traces when he stole the spirit stone vein? It seemed that the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was the key to solving this problem. However, Debao, who had just obtained this technique, did not seem to have the time to cultivate it. However, Lu Ping, Green Fox, and the others soon realized that they had underestimated Debao's talent in this aspect. Although the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was a supreme divine power, Debao seemed to be naturally familiar with this divine power. Even though he could not master even one of the basic divine powers in a short span of 10 days, the talent and achievements he had displayed in this aspect still left Lu Ping and the others dumbfounded. Debao himself seemed to be extremely interested in this divine power, which formed a stark contrast to his usual laziness in cultivation. In more than 10 days, Debao had mined most of the top-grade spirit stones in this branch vein. After another 10 days, Debao began to remove the traces in the vein and backfill the robber's hole bit by bit. He also used a divine power that he had yet to master to disguise the robber's hole as a barren spirit vein. There are still many flaws in this method. If a mind seeker sees this, he will definitely notice that someone has touched the spirit vein here. If I can master the sky-stealing sun-shifting art, I can even change the location of the other spirit stones in the surroundings, making the distribution of spirit stones on the entire vein more reasonable. Even an ordinary mind seeker will not be able to detect it inadvertently. Debao regretfully filled up the spirit vein tunnel, then restored the stone wall to its original state. Only then did he say, "Let's hope that the ore prospectors of the Nine Mystical Tower won't check this vein." As the saying went, the expert knows the ropes, while the layman enjoys the show. Debao clapped his hands and stood up. Only then did he see that everyone, including Lu Ping and the others, were dumbfounded. Lu Ping was slightly puzzled. That's it? It's a complete spirit vein. Can a mind seeker tell? It would have been better if he didn't say this, but as soon as he said this, Debao's tail instantly rose to the sky, and he said, "What do you know? If I was given a period of time to cultivate that, stealing a beam and replacing a pillared divine ability, once I achieve initial success, then a half-baked or finder like Xianwei would absolutely not be able to see through it." Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Amazing, amazing. Debao was even more pleased with himself. However, Debao's complacency only lasted for a moment. He saw Lu Ping divide up the small pile of top-grade spirit stones in the middle of the relic and said, "Qing Hu, Qing Lang, and Qing Hu will take 50, Qing Hu and Qing Lang will take 30, and the rest who have reached the late core forging stage will get 10. As for the rest, they were all kept by Lu Ping with a wave of his sleeves. Debao suddenly became anxious and said, Mine. You guys can't bully me like this. These spirit stones were dug out by me." Lu Ping glared at him and said, You're just a 4th stage core forging stage miner repairs. Do you think you can use the top-grade spirit stones? If you want the top-grade spirit stones, sure, but you'll have to increase your level to the late core forging stage first." Debao's love for spirit stones was not because he was dissatisfied with Lu Ping's distribution. In fact, The number of top-grade spirit stones that DeBeo had collected might not be less than that of Qing Hu and Qing Lang. It was just that DeBeo's love for spirit stones was limitless, even if it was just a low-grade spirit stone. Perhaps this was a special characteristic of the spirit-seeking mice. The spirit stone vein that DeBeo had excavated was only a branch of a large vein. It could not be compared to the top-grade spirit stones that Lu Ping had stolen from Yuanling Island. At that time, Lu Ping had stolen from the main vein, and the ratio of top-grade spirit stones was much higher than this branch vein. However, the number of top-grade spirit stones he had collected was still a huge amount. After finishing the exploration of the Thieving Heavens relic, Qinghu asked worriedly, "How do you plan to leave this place?" The last time they had entered the relic, it was because Qinghu and Lu Ping had continuously attracted the attention of the entire Jishuan Tower. That was how DeBeo had managed to enter the relic and use the divine space essence to successfully transport everyone here. However, it was actually easy to leave now. All he had to do was use the divine space essence. However, this way, he would not be able to retrieve the divine space essence. Once the Jishuan Tower found the location of the divine space essence, the divine space essence would definitely be exposed. Once the divine space essence was exposed, the consequences would undoubtedly be disastrous for Lu Ping. The theft of the Yuanling Island's spirit stone vein, the death of the Yuan clan's formation grandmaster, Mr. One, the huge astronomical phenomenon in the sky above the divine space array, the resonance caused by the heaven creation relic, the death of the Yulin sect's great cultivator, all these mysteries would be revealed one by one. Thus, no matter what, Lu Ping would not take the risk of leaving this divine space essence here. After you leave the Jishuan Tower's territory, head north and return to the Yingtian courtyard. It just so happens that Zilan's cultivation is at a crucial point in her breakthrough, so I will have to stay here for a while. Furthermore, without you by my side, it will be easier for me to break out of the encirclement. Qinghu knew that what Lu Ping said was easier, but in reality, if they stayed together, they would become a burden to Lu Ping. Even Qinghu herself could not say that she would be of any help in the battle against the Jishuan Tower's heirs. Although Qinghu currently had the heaven-stealing divine axe, a spirit treasure that was far more powerful than her natal spirit treasure, the Xinhua Great Axe, which had reached the peak of spirit cultivation, the heaven-stealing divine axe's characteristics did not lie in its swift and fierce attacks. This did not match the characteristics of Qinghu's own cultivation. In her hands, the heaven-stealing divine axe could at most be considered a temporary spirit treasure. However, the reason why Lu Ping was willing to stay in the Thieving Heaven inheritance for a while was not only because of the large spirit stone vein, but also because the purple crystal queen bee was at a critical point in her cultivation. Who had ever seen a purple crystal queen bee at the mid-core forging stage? At the very least, Lu Ping had never heard of it. In fact, after coming out of the Longevity Grotto Heaven, the purple crystal queen bee asked Lu Ping for a low-grade earth spirit object, then went into seclusion to brew royal jelly. Although the purple crystal queen bee had a bountiful harvest in the Longevity Grotto Heaven, with the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, Lu Ping was destined to be disappointed. Most of the purple crystal queen bee's royal jelly was used by the queen bee to increase her cultivation. Half a month's time was not enough to support the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, and it was not enough to support her through the most difficult period. However, the Thieving Heaven inheritance, which was drawn from the Jishuan Tower, was enough to support the purple crystal queen bee through the most difficult period of cultivation. Qinghu and the others left the Thieving Heaven inheritance one by one with the help of the spatial spirit. At this time, Lu Ping also let go of his hands and feet and prepared to do some meticulous preparations. After overcoming the first lightning tribulation, Lu Ping's physical body had once again improved significantly. However, it was now only as strong as a spiritual magic treasure. Although such a body was strong enough for cultivators of the same level, and was comparable to cultivators who had overcome the second lightning tribulation, Lu Ping naturally would not give up on the opportunity to further strengthen his physical body. However, whether it was the 7 aperture pair or the immortal root, the best way to use them was not for Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. Other than strengthening a cultivator's physical body, the 7 aperture pair and the immortal root also had another important function, which was to significantly increase a cultivator's potential. From this point of view, the value of the 7-aperture pear and the immortal root was slightly higher than that of the ashenwood pure jade fruit. However, there was another point to consider. In order to fully utilize the effect of increasing one's potential, the cultivator had to be a blood-refining minor repairs cultivator who had yet to enter the blood condensation stage. It would not work if the cultivator was old or had a high level of cultivation. Furthermore, once the cultivator had reached the Dharma stage, who would care about increasing one's potential? To be able to obtain such a treasure, other than those with heaven-defying luck like the blood-refining minor repairs, which cultivator was not a Dharma adept with a high level of cultivation? As the saying went, treasures could only be found by luck, not by searching for them. In fact, it also required one's ability as a foundation. And for the Dharma adepts who obtained such a treasure, unless it was for a close family member, who would be willing to leave such a treasure for the blood-refining minor repairs to improve their potential rather than use it themselves to increase the strength of their physical body? This was actually something that could not be helped. Rare treasures were already rare, and Dharma adepts often faced life and death situations with every step they took. In order to increase the strength of their physical body, they would not hesitate to give up or even waste the other effects of the spirit fruit. However, after thinking for a long time, Lu Ping decided to use the 7-aperture pear first. This was because this 7-aperture pear was ripe enough, and there might be some seeds left in the core. And in fact, Lu Ping's guess was not wrong. Within this 7-aperture pear, there were indeed 2 dark green seeds. After being carefully taken out by Lu Ping, he handed them over to Lu Taohua. Cultivating spirit herbs, spirit fruits, and spirit trees was not only something that the Wood Luan race was good at. Lu Taohua, who was born from the spirit demon race, also had a natural advantage in this aspect. Although Lu Ping had another refined Dharma alchemy furnace in his hands, Lu Ping was, after all, not familiar with the heaven-stealing furnace. Furthermore, the Na Chuan cauldron had already condensed 2 treasures and had been nurtured by Lu Ping's inner yuan for more than 100 years. He was already very familiar with it. However, with a treasure-level alchemy furnace as a backup, for an alchemy grandmaster like Lu Ping, he could use it to try out a new method of alchemy, and that was the continuous alchemy furnace division secret technique. In short, in the process of alchemy, the Na Chuan cauldron would be the main, and the heaven-stealing furnace would be the auxiliary. The 2 alchemy furnaces would cooperate with each other, and the heaven-stealing furnace would share the difficulty of alchemy with the Na Chuan cauldron. In the end, it would achieve a method to increase the efficiency of alchemy and the success rate of alchemy. And this method was a secret alchemy technique that only alchemy grandmasters could come into contact with. For alchemy, it was undoubtedly a serious challenge that had to be faced. At the same time, it was also against the fact that the rare herbs used to refine Dharma-level elixirs were extremely rare. Moreover, the efficiency of alchemy was low, and the success rate of alchemy was low. Chapter 1208. For alchemy grandmasters, the continuous furnace separation was a secret alchemy technique that they had to challenge. The main reason for this was that almost all of the spirit herbs needed to refine Dharma stage elixirs could be regarded as natural treasures, especially for some of the spirit herbs needed for elixirs with special effects. However, unlike the elixirs before the core forging stage, which had a fixed number of 10 elixirs in each furnace, a large portion of Dharma stage elixirs were not like this. After being successfully refined with a 100% success rate, only 3 or 5 elixirs could be refined out of the furnace. Some of the more precious elixirs could only be refined out of the furnace. Elixirs that could be used to enhance the strength of the physical body were often extremely precious and difficult to refine. The ashwood pure jade fruit had only been refined by Lu Ping, and he had used the spirit water nourishing elixir cultivation technique. The reason why Lu Ping was able to concoct 3 spirit water body nourishing pellets from the blood skeleton flower was because the blood skeleton flower was mature enough and its medicinal effects were beyond Lu Ping's expectations. The 7-orifice pear in Lu Ping's hand wasn't enough to concoct more than 2 spirit water body nourishing pellets in one go. But if he used the continuous cauldron pellet separation, he might be able to concoct one more. There were naturally many things to pay attention to when using continuous furnace separation. At least the quality of the supporting elixirs could not be too different from the main alchemy furnace. Otherwise, the quality of the elixir would also be weakened. As for the spirit fire needed for alchemy, under the Nachuan cauldron was naturally the silver spirit fire, and the spirit fire under the heaven-stealing cauldron was a little unique. It was a 6-inch high-grade earth-level spirit fire. It was a strange spirit fire that Lu Ping had found in the North Sea volcanoes. At that time, it was only 4 inches long, and it was called the 4-inch spirit fire. Now, after a period of growth, the 4-inch spirit fire had devoured a mid-grade and high-grade earth-level spirit fire in Lu Ping's hands, and had successfully advanced to become a 6-inch spirit fire. This method of growing by devouring other spirit fires was also an extremely rare type of spirit fire of heaven and earth, and it had a very deep understanding of alchemy. However, this type of flame had an extremely unique property. Every time the spiritual flame was upgraded, it could only be used to refine spirit pills that corresponded to the level of the spiritual flame. At this moment, the spiritual flame was 6 inches long and could only be used to refine late core forging spirit pills. If it wanted to refine early Dharma spirit pills, it would be impossible, unless the 6-inch flame could be upgraded to a 7-inch flame that could be used to refine Dharma spirit pills. At this time, there was a flash of fire in Lu Ping's hand, and a spirit fire started burning in his palm. It was indeed a low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. However, this spirit fire was not very suitable for refining elixirs, and it was also slightly violent in the forging of weapons. It could only be used to refine spiritual items. And at the moment when this spirit fire appeared in Lu Ping's hand, the 6-inch spirit fire that was floating in midair suddenly jumped into Lu Ping's palm like a cat that had smelled fish. With a series of crackling sounds, the two sparks actually merged together. More accurately, the low-grade heaven-level spirit fire was actually slowly being devoured by the 6-inch spirit fire. The 6-inch spirit fire itself did not change much, but the line of fire gradually grew from its original 6-inch length to 7 inches. It's done. Lu Ping's heart leaped with joy. The 7-inch spirit flame was now a genuine, low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. Moreover, in terms of refining early Dharma realm medicinal pellets, even the silver spirit flame could not compare to it. Although this kind of spirit fire could become the best spirit fire for refining elixirs at any stage of cultivation, it was a pity that this kind of spirit fire could only forever be used to refine elixirs of a certain stage. The true test of a cultivator's alchemy skills was whether or not he could split his attention to take care of the situation in the other alchemy furnace during the process of refining elixirs. This was a test of the cultivator's inner yuan, divine will, alchemy skills, and willpower. Fortunately, Lu Ping had long been prepared for this. Although the process of refining the 7 orifices elixir was a kind of torture, Lu Ping still managed to persevere and successfully split the elixirs between the alchemy furnaces during the solidification stage. Furthermore, it did not cause any damage to the solidification of the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace. Finally, the 2 alchemy furnace treasures opened at the same time, and 2 elixirs, one big and one small, flew out of the alchemy furnace and were collected by Lu Ping, who had long been prepared. The 7 orifices elixir was originally considered a mid-Dharma stage elixir, but after using the alchemy technique, the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace was still at the mid-Dharma stage, while the smaller 7 orifices elixir in the auxiliary alchemy furnace could only be considered an early Dharma stage elixir. Fortunately, although Lu Ping's cultivation level was at the mid-Dharma stage, early Dharma stage elixirs were only slightly less effective for him, but they were not completely useless. The 2 7 orifices elixirs were refined by Lu Ping in succession, and it took him another 10 days or so. Lu Ping could clearly feel that his physical body had been strengthened. Although it was not enough to break through the shackles of the spirit cultivation stage, it was much closer. At least in front of a great practitioner who had passed the second thunder trial, the strength of Lu Ping's physical body was nothing to be afraid of. From the time that the 7 orifices elixir was refined to the time that Lu Ping had completely refined it, Another month had passed. By now, Qing Hu and the others must have already left the Nine Xian Towers territory and were heading north. Furthermore, with the Nine Xian Towers methods, they must have already found out where Qing Hu and the others were. Lu Ping just did not know if the Nine Xian Towers practitioners would have the patience to wait in the Nine Xian Mountain after such a long wait. Lu Ping waved his hand, and a space door opened. The purple crystal bee king, which had grown to a size of 2 feet after advancing to the mid-core forging stage, flapped its wings and flew out of the house of gold. Big brother, I've advanced to the mid-core forging stage. The purple crystal bee queen's face was filled with joy, and Lu Ping's face was also full of smiles. Not bad. In the cultivation world, there had never been a purple crystal bee king in the core forging stage, let alone a queen bee that had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. When Zilan advanced to the core forging stage, she was able to brew royal jelly of higher quality. Now that she had advanced to the mid-core forging stage, Lu Ping wondered if she had gained some other abilities. Big brother, look. A small jade bottle was handed to Lu Ping. Inside the bottle was the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal bee queen, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. Although Zilan had used most of the royal jelly brewed from the honey in the spiritual herb garden in the longevity grotto heaven to increase her cultivation, it was not easy for her to keep this much. Under the purple crystal queen's hopeful gaze, Lu Ping opened the jade bottle. The essence of 100 flowers, which was purer than the royal jelly from before, spread out from the jade bottle. Lu Ping's expression gradually changed from intoxication to surprise, and finally, a trace of shock. After Lu Ping quickly put away the jade bottle, he stuck a spirit sealing talisman on it. Then, he asked excitedly, "Did you brew this after advancing to the mid-core forging stage?" The purple crystal queen was a little nervous when she saw the constant changes in Lu Ping's expression. At this moment, when she saw Lu Ping's irrepressible joy, the purple crystal queen smiled proudly and said, "Of course." However, as if she suddenly thought of something, the purple crystal queen was a little discouraged. It's just that after Zilan advanced to the mid-core forging stage, the amount of royal jelly that she can brew has been greatly reduced. Previously, she could extract 1 bottle out of 10 bottles of purple crystal honey. Although the quality of the royal jelly has increased, she may not be able to extract 1 bottle out of 20 bottles. At this time, Lu Ping had already calmed down. He nodded and said, "If such a heaven-defying treasure could be produced in large quantities, that would be a real problem." In this small bottle of royal jelly, Lu Ping not only detected the pure and thick taste of the purple crystal bee's essence of 100 flowers, but it also had a greater auxiliary and enhancement effect than the previous royal jelly. However, all of this paled in comparison to the new thing that appeared in the royal jelly. Lu Ping felt the power of vitality in the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal queen bee, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. After the purple crystal queen bee advanced to the mid-core forging stage, it condensed the essence of 100 flowers to refine the purple crystal royal jelly. It actually melted the vitality of the 100 flowers into it, causing the purple crystal royal jelly to suddenly become a treasure comparable to a longevity pill. It could be used to directly increase a cultivator's lifespan. With Lu Ping's current knowledge as an alchemy grandmaster, he was 80 to 90% sure that he could use the purple crystal royal jelly as the base and combine it with some other spirit herbs to refine a new kind of longevity pill. In terms of the concentration of vitality contained in the purple crystal royal jelly, this kind of longevity pill with the purple crystal royal jelly as the base might not be able to increase one's lifespan as much as the myriad wonder jade nectar. However, with the purple crystal queen bee, Lu Ping could continuously obtain the royal jelly. In other words, once Lu Ping was able to concoct this kind of longevity pill, it would be an endless supply. In fact, the myriad wonder jade nectar could be produced continuously in the myriad poison nectar or the myriad poison source liquid. However, there was a harsh condition, and that was that Lu Ping had to constantly search for highly poisonous places so that the myriad poison nectar could absorb the poison and condense a drop of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Not only was this process dangerous for Lu Ping, but Lu Ping also did not have the time to search for highly poisonous places all over the world just for a few drops of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Moreover, the speed at which the myriad Wonder Jade nectar was condensing was extremely slow, and it was also extremely small. It was not as satisfying as the purple crystal royal jelly. Outside of the Nine Xian Mountain, the master of the Yin and Yang building could no longer remain calm. He spoke to Wei Zhan, who was beside him. Boss Wei, waiting like this is not a solution. Who knows whether Lu Tianping will come or not? We have already received news that the Cyan Fox 9 bandits have appeared near the Yulon River and are heading north. Wei Zhan did not pay attention to the master of the Yin and Yang building. Instead, he reached out his hand and waved in midair. A sound-transmitting talisman appeared out of nowhere in his palm. Wei Zhan chuckled and said, "Second brother, the sect has already ordered that all disciples are not allowed to leave the sect's territory. Even if you want to chase after them, I'm afraid you can't go against the sect's orders, right?" At this moment, not only the master of the Yin and Yang building, but even Chang Sankai and the master of the Five Elements Pavilion had solemn expressions on their faces. They no longer cared about the fleeing Cyan Fox 9 bandits. They asked in a serious voice, "Something big is going to happen to the sect. Boss Wei, do you know what it is?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.